welcome to the Town Council meeting. We are going to call this meeting to order at about 6:02 and ask for a roll call from Pam.
Certainly. Bernie Brower.
Here.
Rick Stevens.
Here.
Rob Levitt.
Yes.
Sherry Tannenbaum. Herschel Ross.
Here.
Mark Kittle.
Here.
Jackie Litzit.
Here. Our first item is an executive session, so I would ask for a motion to enter into an executive session for the purpose of a conference with our attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions in accordance with CRS 246402-4B.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're going to take it out there so you can stay. You can
You
stay.
guys can all stay.
Stay
We're
here.
gonna move.
Go up.
How long?
Pam, I tried to get on 101 Midland.
Bring your child back.
They all try it.
Thanks. Got the weather on here.
Yeah, I went to the Weather Channel because that usually updates, so I can tell if it's working or not. It's not
Okay.
something in the
Cool.
air. Okay, we are back in regular session. Our next item is the consent agenda. Are there questions on the consent agenda? Anything anyone wants pulled off, or is there a motion?
I make a motion we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Council comments, reports, disclosures?
I have a few. We're beginning an initiative that includes youth zone, the police chiefs. Greg and I talked about this. Rec departments, Cradle to Career program, to bring a summer-long training utilizing a team from youth zone buddies, some coaches, some principals, to start to talk about what it means to be a youth in the valley. Some of the feedback that I've been getting over the last year or so is that there needs to be a way to involve parents more in the communication with their student athletes and their students. So we sort of got together a month or so ago and decided that one of the things we'd like to do is put together a team of about 12 people that bring different ideas to the table. And we'll split that group up and we'll go out and do some trainings with people and presentations. And then it'll be followed up by a weekend symposium in October. It's kind of an exciting thing. It's interesting when you look out there and realize that there's as many kids as there are looking for something to do. And we've talked about that for a long time, but in this case, we'll try to go implement something. This weekend, there's about 1,400 kids showing up at Crown Mountain again for the lacrosse shootout. So if you want anything from Whole Foods, get it Friday afternoon. I think we should start doing public service announcements of the construction activities in the core and the scheduling and what's going to be impacted, what streets are going to be open and closed, and where the dirt's going. I'd like to get an update on the mudslide at Lake Christine and the DOW. And I've had a lot of feedback on where's Butch's. So if there's any way we can figure out where to put Butch, that would be nice. That's all I have.
Anybody else? Okay, our next item is citizen comments for items not on the agenda or items added to the agenda after the deadline. So any citizen comments for any issues that are not on the agenda coming up? Yes, sir.
David Schomburg. Just like to read something. How is everybody? Madam Mayor, how are you? Good. That's great. Basalt's solution is clear, and everyone's opinion is valid concerning the viability of our home Basalt. Let's look at Basalt's problems simply. Let's create a plan today for a good outcome for the Basalt community in the most simple of terms. We need to look beyond the overall opportunity to start development on the Pan and Fork parcel or to create a beautiful park. It is time to end the public outcry whether individuals lean toward a development or park on the Pan and Fork parcel. Everyone who is a registered voter in Basalt should be able to cast their opinion in the form of a vote. A special election needs to be called for November 2015 with this question put before the people of Basalt. My public comments tonight are a formal request being put before the Basalt City Council to have a special election in November 2015 containing a ballot question that would direct any financial institution or construction company with the development ideals and vested rights that would be granted through this particular ballot. This single parcel is the beginning, not the end of development applications that could be presented to Basalt as time moves forward. Does anyone understand that the mayor and certain Basalt City Council members are destroying the town's ability to work with financiers and developers in the future? If we as a community put our ideals, opinions, directives before the Basalt Council as a determination of open space and development, why do they consistently refuse to bring our decisions forward for the viability of our community? Obviously, there is a serious disconnect between the community's ideals and the positions that the Basalt Council currently maintains. It is clear that the mayor and council cannot move this forward with the community's best interests at heart. The community understands the most basic form of democracy and decision-making during controversy is debate, which ultimately leads to conclusions. This mechanism has failed in Basalt. Forgetting about the past 10 years of countless community forums, roundtables, committees, meetings, and public input, our legislators, the Basalt City Mayor and City Council, refuse to follow their constituents' desire for a plan and execution of something to bring our town back. They use the word revitalization. The community as a whole calls for survival. It is time for the voters in Basalt to have a more direct control in the final decisions on the current proposal from Low Enterprises. Let the citizens have the final word. This would allow the Basalt City Council the time to work on other serious situations developing in our small town of 2,592 voters. I'm not going to read the rest of it. You're welcome. I'm putting before you all a serious question. I've listened to it and I've read about it and I've watched facts coming out on both sides. I think that everybody's got a really valid opinion. Just like with the bond issue, I didn't really like it. I went with the majority of the people in the community. There's a disconnect here. I think it's time that you all let it go and give it back to the people. And I'm asking you all to discuss it right here and now, whether you're willing to do that, whether you're willing to give the vote back to the people. None of you garnered more than 25% of the vote. Most council people sitting here right now were under 10% of the total vote. 491 people voted in the last election. 2,592 registered voters. I think it's time for you all to let go. You have more important things to be deciding. And I thank you for the time.
Thank you. Any other citizen comments or items not on the agenda? Jerry?
Yes, I just wanted to thank you, all of you, who serve on this board, for your dedication
is it possible to make a motion to get a special election?
No, it's not. It's not on the agenda. It's not an action item.
No, it's not possible. Not right now, because it needs to be on the agenda and have us be prepared to do that. Okay, if there's no more comments, for items.
Question? Can there be a motion to direct staff to prepare that for future agenda?
Well,
Yeah,
I think the council would have to have some discussion about it because
Yeah.
I don't know whether you want to have
That's the purpose of making a
An
motion,
election.
to have discussion.
an election on because there are items that you can't send to the electorate depending upon
Right.
what the question is.
So I guess that would be, it would come out of a proposed motion to say, let's explore the possibility of an election in November as a council, and then find out what the answers are to the questions you just
You
raised.
can't
Not
do anything now.
okay, but can there be a motion to put it on a future agenda?
You can't take any action.
You can't
can
do
direct
anything.
staff to do something if you want.
You can direct stuff.
Yeah, you can, that's what I asked.
You don't need a motion for that.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Our next item is, it's just a list of names. Jim DeFrancia, Low Enterprises, and Michael McBoy, Rowing Fork Community Development Corporation.
Yeah. I was for it. How did I do? I was in the majority. I don't remember that. Okay with me? Either way,
Yes.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, my name is Jim DeFrancia. I'm with Low Enterprises. We had put forth a proposed plan of development for the CDC parcel, and my comments will be very brief. My intent really is to just offer some clarification about our position in discussion as to what form of development, if any, takes place on that property. I know that in some of the recent public dialogue and letters to the editor and what have you, at one point I was cited as the developer trying to sell his plan. The fact of the matter is I'm not trying to sell anything at all. If anything, we came into the process trying to deliver something that we understood at the time was commensurate with the desires of the town. We sought to follow the recommendations of the DAC as closely as we could. Certainly they're not exactly in accordance with the DAC, but I think substantially in accordance with the DAC. We initially met some considerable positive response in that regard. Subsequently, there's been a lot of negative reaction. We fully understand that, take no offense at it, and have no issue with it. We appreciate that this is ultimately a decision of the town. We are hoping to be able, as I said, to deliver whatever development activity the town determines is desired and appropriate. But we look to the council to make that decision and to guide us in that regard. We're delighted to deliver whatever the town wants when the council tells us what the town wants. And so again, as I said, we're not trying to sell anything, we're trying to deliver something. And we have viewed this from the outset as effectively like a public-private partnership, because we understood the town had convened the DAC, was trying to identify what would satisfy town needs as determined by the council and staff, and that's a public determination. We sought to bring to the table the necessary private expertise for implementation as developers, and I think the contribution that we primarily seek to contribute, apart from simply our skill in implementing, is to keep a focus on the economic viability of whatever is undertaken. And again, just to keep a focus on that economic viability. We are not seeking to maximize profits, which we've been suggested as what almost an obligation of a developer. Not at all. We're seeking to have everyone understand the economic consequences of various decisions, and we in turn are prepared to be very open and very transparent about our own economics, and simply seek to do whatever is determined within the context of economic reality and acceptable returns. I've personally had a lot of experience with the federal government in Washington, D.C., very cognizant of how the federal government approaches these matters, You're very open, very transparent with your numbers. They allow you certain elements of profitability. They scrutinize your cost. No legitimate cost is not for the president of the company to take a 1-week exploration tour to Paris. Yes, a legitimate cost is for the president of the company to spend time dealing with professionals in design and other issues. So again, I conclude by saying our focus is on delivering what the town determines to be appropriate and commensurate with the town's needs, and we will contribute our expertise, and we'll certainly contribute our views on that economic viability. And in that regard, just as a closing comment, when I talk about economic viability, as I think I may have been quoted in the press, when you look at the CD site in its present configuration with the present economic constraints, the CDC was seeking to recover close to $3 million that they had invested in cleaning up the Pan and Fork. That's not even a profit. They're just trying to get their capital back so they can do other good things. The town, in turn, is seeking to recover close to $3 million that they have spent doing all the improvements to that site, cleaning up the former Pan and Fork Park, and that's $6 million right off the bat. If the town, for example, said that all they wanted was a 60-room hotel, I'd be happy to join with the town and build a 60-room hotel. But I can tell you, coming out of the box at $6 million, that's $100,000 a room, and I haven't even built it yet. And I can tell you, coming out of the box, that doesn't work. So we couldn't do that. And we would tell you that, and I don't think you'd find anybody that could say that they could do that. So our view is we are here to deliver what you want and to be cooperative, open, transparent, and responsive to the needs of the town as the council might eventually determine. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
I'm well, and I wanted to invite Tim McFlynn from the Manaus Fund to briefly talk about. Tim is a partner with Manaus, and the CDC are partners, and so he wanted to make a couple of comments tonight.
Just a
before
couple
I
of
address
minutes during citizen comment. First, thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council, and mostly to not just all of you and your staff, but everyone here every time there's a meeting for being so engaged, as happened last year when the open space management of the Glacier property in this room had huge turnouts every single meeting for over a year. So thank you, all of you. I want to begin by saying, and I'm just going to make 3 quick points, that first I appear tonight as a co-founder and director of the Manaus Fund. And it's not an overstatement to say, as most of you know, if it weren't for the Manaus Fund, we would not be here this evening on this matter. What I want to do is give a little thumbnail of Manaus's role. You haven't heard much about that. The CDC has been the principal because it's the property owner. Manaus's role in making the purchase of this Pan and Fork parcel possible for the town, in creating and funding the CDC as the vehicle for the purchase and as the current owner, and in standing ready to support the town's path forward. I think you're going to hear from Michael, not me, that the path forward, the ideal path forward would be ownership and the control that gives you going forward using the successful RMI model just downriver. My little thumbnail is illuminated in great detail by the handout that I think you already have, all right? And obviously you don't have time to read that, but that is the rest of the story, and that is what the reason I was asked to be here for the Manaus piece only. Number 1, point 1, when I say if it weren't for the Manaus Fund and for its mission and resources, we would not be here this evening, and the Pan and Fork Trailer Park would still be in existence, because at the time that the purchase opportunity arose, there were not sufficient funds to put $3.2 million into that purchase on a short timeline. A little bit about Manaus. It's a tax-exempt nonprofit whose mission, in 2 words, is social justice. That's what Manaus is about. It's actual mission includes something quite relevant, which is to work to build the capacity of communities to empower people to actively engage to achieve a more just society. That is why the Pan and Fork got on the Manaus radar. You may have heard of the latest social justice venture, the Valley Settlement Project, but Manaus's general approach is under the radar, behind the scenes. We don't seek or take credit for what we do. The town invited the Manaus Fund to help because we had something useful, money. And the deal was a partnership in the purchase. We both purchased the property to capture that entire Pan and Fork opportunity, with the town kicking in 1.2 million at closing and owning that fabulous piece along the river that is now totally forever park property because of where the funds came from. The second partnership objective was as partners to ensure the just relocation of the trailer park community and residents. And I want to say on behalf of the whole Manaus board and organization, which has grown very quickly because of the Valley Settlement Project, you deserve real credit, real acknowledgement, real kudos for your leadership and the staff's efforts to achieve the just relocation of the residents, and I want to thank you for that. As partners in the purchase, we have substantial philanthropic dollars invested, and we're assured we would be made whole, not a profit, made whole. Point number, my last point really, so I can be finished here. So where did the CDC come from? What is that for? Why is that the owner? And the answer is very simple. After the Manaus Fund finished work behind the scenes on the 3rd Street Center, helping that community and all of those stakeholders put together that multi-tenant nonprofit center and providing the financial model, the consulting team, and all pre-development costs, we had refocused on the Pan and Fork, and the Manaus board created the CDC, something I don't think anybody knows. We've never said that. We created the CDC as an independent 501c3 nonprofit because under federal law, community development corporations can be very effective tools for revitalizing towns and for addressing our most disadvantaged neighborhoods and families' needs. That's why we created the CDC. I'm not part of the CDC and never have been, but I was asked if I would make these few comments and asked you to look at the detail behind them, which is 4 documents. A summary of the whole history, a timeline going back to 1960 when the trailer park was created, a financial summary of what's really been invested and for what, and a short bullet list of reasons that we hope the town will consider ownership of the, not just the vector, but of the whole CDC parcel. So I'm here on behalf of Manaus, not for Manaus to make a penny, for Manaus to be made whole so those dollars can be reprogrammed, to help the town make the best of this opportunity to control what has to be the cornerstone for the future, which is how this downtown assemblage of 7 or maybe even 8 acres ultimately is used in the wisdom of the town electeds. And lastly, to urge you tonight to schedule a work session not about what you should do eventually in your decision making, but how, with the help of both Manaus and the CDC at the table, to look at how you can explore, and we can explore together, ownership of the entire parcel. And I would ask you to consider doing that after you've had a chance to read the whole handout, which I think will be illuminating for all of you. Thank you. So I stay with, I'm happy to leave or sit, whatever you want. Okay. Okay.
I'm Michael McVoy. I'm board president of the Roaring Fork Community Development Corporation, commonly referred to as the CDC. It's good to have a chance to speak to you this evening. It's been a while, and I look forward to hopefully having some more opportunities to have conversations. I want to go back a little bit and just remind people. I think, Jackie, you were the only one on council when we first put together the deal to buy the property. We've stated from the beginning that the CDC is not a developer. I think at times people have confused us with being a developer. Our goal from the beginning was to be a partner with the town of Basalt, not to be a developer. Our role, in fact, has been to bring developers to the table to try and bring proposals to the community and find a plan that would work for the CDC part of the Pan and Fork. We've actually had 3 different development partners that we've worked with. One that is very little known and perhaps not known at all by most of you is that we spent 6 months right after we purchased the property in 2011 negotiating with the Aspen Ski Company. They were going to purchase a part of the Pan and Fork downtown for a hotel site and swap us land in the Mid-Valley that the Ski Co owned, where we would put replacement housing, which at the time was the requirement of the town under town ordinance. To move trailers required replacement housing. We were never able to make that deal work financially, and they never submitted an actual proposal. 2 years ago, we had a deal with Richard Myers and Realty Capital Corporation. There were public presentations and plans. That proposal never went to being completed and was ultimately withdrawn. Basically, it wasn't going to work. I guarantee you, if you saw those plans now in the context of what we're looking at today, you would wonder why we ever even were looking at a plan like that, because it's nowhere near what's evolved in the process in the last couple of years, including with the DAC. We're here to suggest that Basalt's process, Basalt's relationship with how developers work and how to get a development to work in Basalt is not working. I think it's clear that there's a lot of contention, a lot of different issues, and what we think is the best way forward is for the town to buy the property, because if you look at the one model that has worked in Basalt in the last 3 or 4 years that's led to a project that's rising out of the ground as we speak right now, which is RMI. The components that made that project work was the town owned the land, the town designated the building envelope, the town designated the approved uses, and the town designated the price, and RMI agreed, and that project is happening. We think that's a model that might work better than waiting for a developer to come, try and listen, try and pay attention to what's going on. Quite honestly, Lowe spent several months listening and trying to get to a point of presenting a proposal, and it turned out it was a proposal that didn't work, and they're still confused as to why. If the town takes charge, takes control, and designates what's approved, where, and how that process works, there's a huge opportunity that a development might actually go forward. If you were to change the model, the conversation could change. Right now, in Basalt, the first conversation with a developer is, oh my God, what are you going to do to us? And immediately there's concern, there's fear, there's confrontation, there's conflict. The conversation, if you owned the property, would become, what do you want it to be? It allows for an immediate, very quick change of the discussion. You could bring clarity, you could bring control, and you could make a development happen in a lot more quick fashion than is likely to happen in the current process of trying to work with developers. Among the other advantages that would come to the town to purchase the property, it would allow for a much easier vacating of Two Rivers Road, which could add up to almost an acre of additional property downtown. In addition, if the town were to purchase the property, and instead of looking just at the Pan and Fork, which quite honestly right now is sinking back into the floodplain with the weight of the expectations and the financial burdens that are being placed on it. You would have the opportunity to spread those impacts, spread those financial issues over what is essentially an 8-acre parcel that would be undivided public property between the river, the hill, and Midland Avenue. There's enough room to make that work for almost every constituent that's represented in this room tonight. There is not enough room on the Pan and Fork to make that happen. You have a way of doing that if you put all the town property into play and you master plan that entire parcel instead of trying to make it all work on the Pan and Fork, which I think we've demonstrated can't happen with all those expectations. One of the other advantages would be you would have a large riverside park. It would open up opportunities to get additional funding from state, local, and regional sources. GOCO, Eagle County, Pitkin County, Open Space and Trails, all of those are entities that are happy to look at how you finance riverside parks, and you would end up with a much larger riverside park that could help share some of the financial obligations and open up some doors to additional funding. But I think, personally, the most important single thing that you could accomplish is you could accelerate the timetable of when Basalt's future is finally going to come. Right now, nothing is going to happen until a development approval is reached. If you own the property, you can immediately start bringing vitality to downtown like the DAC recommended. You can immediately start having a park downtown, like obviously so many citizens would like to see happen. You can send the message that downtown Basalt has turned a corner and is moving forward, and it's happening now, not at some point in the future when we finally agree on what a development might look like and we can close everything at once. That's an opportunity that you can only have by purchasing the property and going forward immediately. Finally, Tim talked about and you have an agenda item later this evening, so I'm not going to get into the specifics of that proposal so much. But quite honestly, that proposal suggests that the town turn more than half of the CDC property into a public park. That would require you to buy it. If you're going to already buy more than half the property and leave us with barely an acre, it makes a lot more sense to us for you to seize control, take Basalt's future into your hand, move forward with the entire property, and start making it all happen now. Thank you.
The Chamber of Commerce. I bet I know who that is. Oh, man. It's the lovely Robin Waters.
I thought everybody would file out after that. Is there public comment?
How long will it be?
Yeah, I have 5 to 6 minutes, something like that. It's important.
It is.
So.
able to make comments after Lowe talked. Well, how could we all of a sudden jump from 5A to 6 when none of the citizens have been able to have a comment?
I'll let our chief staff answer that, because we didn't really, this was just under comments not on the agenda, but I will let Mr. Scanlon say why it's structured this way.
So when, before they spoke, there was a comment from the audience, would they be allowed to speak? And I think we had said, and you probably heard yes. So I think what they're referring to is a comment that was made by the chair, that we would listen to comments. So if you want to.
I think you should. There are a lot of people here who have comments after what Michael
Yeah, you can move 8D
said.
if you want.
There are a lot of people.
Okay, why don't, can we do that? Why don't we move that item up on the agenda so that it all happens together?
Can we talk right now then?
No.
You know, a dictator, it seems to me that the people who work for us and who have been elected by us should listen to what we have to say at this point in time.
We actually figured out a way to do that. We're going to move that agenda item to right now so that we will be able to have citizen comment right now.
Perfect.
Okay?
Presentation on it.
There is a presentation, however, and it's on, is it B?
8D.
8D. Okay, if you have an agenda, it's 8D that we're moving to right now, and it's a resolution of the town council accepting the PRO's downtown planning map and directing staff to prepare a downtown master plan and park agreement. Yes, Rick?
Since we're moving to that agenda item, does that preclude any comments that someone might have on the presentation that was just made? It's all going to be walled into one?
Right.
Yeah, Rob?
We need a motion to make that change to the agenda?
The chair can do it.
Or I can move that we,
We're moving it.
okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Gary.
So we are on 8D.
I don't take it personally.
In your prayer books on page,
Is there a staff presentation on this, Mike?
It's very short. So there was our quarterly breakfast that the town council holds on the last Friday of the month. And the topic was what next with the downtown plan. There were a number of maps, and this being sort of the one that there seemed to be some agreement around as to park versus development, and I'll call it areas. Really focusing on that big V that you heard from the Downtown Area Advisory Committee, and actually overlaying it and then putting on the CDC parcel so you can see where it intersects it, as Michael indicated earlier, using that view corridor that starts on Midland Avenue. So this is that map. We then wrote a resolution that says, if this is the map, and then we've amended it since to allow there to be a period of public comment and input related to the map, because the feeling was while the council had time to talk about the map and sort of knew how it developed, that the community needed time as well to understand the map, the parcel, the roads, and where they connect. And so this is to scale. Those weirs that are on the river are actually where those weirs are, so that's what we used as sort of the guide for that big V in triangle. This process can be elongated to have a continued input. And given that I know that Lowe has an option to purchase the CDC parcel, and I think what you heard from Mr. DeFrancia tonight is if the town council says this is where I get to build, and you can tell me what you want on it, I could put together a proposal for that. And then you have the CDC argument, which is you might not be able to get to the end of that, and if you can't get to the end of it, the RMI offers a better model, is I think what they're showing as to a way you could get to the end. I think some of the critical pieces in the RMI is the price of the property. And these are two very different pieces and parcels in terms of their price. If we would apply the RMI per square foot price to this, it would be 1.2 million, roughly. So coming out of the chute, there's a big difference. So that's the resolution and the amended resolution, and we've sort of highlighted the changes on the back.
Yes, Rick.
So above you there is the Lowe's initial concept, and that was vetted out at several DAC meetings and other community events.
Yes, it was presented and talked
So the
about.
impression that we were given
Presented.
was that this map that's below there was the first time anybody's ever seen it. But in reality, it's just slightly different from what's above there, which has been floating around for any number of months.
Correct.
Okay, thanks. And to the left are the concept maps that showed what DAAC came up with as view corridors to the
Right.
site, which again aren't that unfamiliar to me and not that different from this proposed downtown planning map.
Correct.
Others?
I'd like to hear this answer from public.
Okay. How about at this point, we take public comment on the maps and the proposal and the resolution? Yes, ma'am.
My name's Patrice Becker from Basalt, and I just, with the whole low proposal, I don't see any room for making affordable housing, which is a priority on the Our Town planning document. Also, on the Our Town planning document, it says repurpose buildings that we have already, and I don't see that here at all.
Thanks, Patrice. More public comment? Yes, Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Kudinski. I was going to just say that as far as the value of one half of the CDC parcel, I would just like to give you my opinion on that. As you know, the open space that is around a piece of land and the entitlements that a piece of land has actually dictate what the value is. And if that one half of the CDC parcel were given significant entitlements, the value could be significantly more. It could pay off the $2.5 million. People have said I'm a pie in the sky dreamer. I'm like, I have no credibility, but I am very, very sure you can check it out. You can do some plans, but that remaining parcel should be worth far in excess of at least to pay back the CDC if you put the entitlements on it. And I think as far as the employee housing, our employee housing program is broken. It doesn't work down here. It's modeled after Aspen, which doesn't work. So that should be discussed, and it shouldn't be linked to this proposal. And also the hotel being the loss leader. So I think just isolating, the pieces would be the best for the town. Thank you. Can I approach?
Approach the bench, by all means.
I'll try. We have walked pretty good. We've had this discussion, and I want to bring to your attention some of the things that we saw when we looked at this, and that was, and this is what you guys kind of decided on Friday over coffee. Was it caffeinated? Anyway, it's my understanding that if we go to this, that in truth, this portion of the property here was already being given to us as a community by Lowe. This was pretty much right here, in the view plane, if you would. Now, the view plane was narrower, but nonetheless, it was still, it's still this piece of property. This piece of property is our beautiful park, and we're thrilled about it. So what we're really talking about right now is from Midland Avenue to, and this was not clear, because the orange part, I don't know why that's vague, but the truth is that when those of us who see the hotel and the amenities that the hotel could bring to the park, in terms of a restaurant, in terms of a bar, in terms of a frozen yogurt stand, and a bicycle rental place, that the interesting thing is that this little triangle is outside the view plane, number one. Number two, I think it would be an important thing to be part of this commercial development, a hotel. And the only reason I say that is because now what you're really talking about then is a piece of property. You already had this in the original Lowe presentation. You already had that. They were willing to give you the corner, which we all kind of went, really? So in essence, what's happened now, as you look at this, if you agree with me that this little triangle outside the view plane, which has been extended, should be part of the commercial development because it would service the park, would be an amenity to the park, then really what you're talking about is a piece of property that is, I'm going to say 1/4 of an acre. I'm not sure. And so the question that I think needs to be asked is, how much are we as a community being asked to invest, whether in our own treasury or in gifts that we get from other counties or whatever, other nonprofits, to buy what in essence is a pretty small piece of land. And so I think that's part of it. If we could get a clarification of what you think, like Mike McVoy wants to know, how much of this would you like to buy? We'd like to sell you the whole thing. I think that's what he's asking for. So I would ask you to ask council and ask Mike, okay, well, how much do we have to spend to buy this piece of property? Because we already had this. We already had this. This is already our park. And so the only thing I'm bringing up that might be a variation is this little triangle, which is outside the viewpoint. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Mary Jo Hughes, and when I read about the meeting that you had in Saturday's paper, I first looked at that and I said to myself, that could be an interesting compromise. But then when I continued to read and read about a hotel and a restaurant, my red flags went up. And the reason that they did was because there are so many other options that you can have with development there that will bring venues and will bring food to the area. First, I want to read one of the thoughts I had today because I did not realize that we were going to be discussing this particular agenda. And this is what I have to say. We have once again come to the crossroads where we must make a decision that will last a lifetime and be remembered by all of the town residents. Will it be progressive and forward-thinking, or will it be Einstein's definition of insanity? Continuing to do the same thing over and over again and hope for a different outcome. When people come to an area or a town such as ours for vacations or to visit, what do they remember most of their stay or from their stay? Is it the recreation, the fishing, hiking, biking, hunting, swimming, or boating? The fun they had playing in our parks with their family and friends? The restaurants they ate in, the art, music, theater, festivals, or outdoor or other venues they enjoyed, or is it the hotel or the condo they stayed at? We need an amphitheater. This is my thought, is in the orange area there, wouldn't it be great if there was an amphitheater that had a kitchen in it that was set for catering for different venues? You know, something right next to RMI, not a large or even small hotel or restaurant. People can either rent the amphitheater and the kitchen for private venues, or when the town allows music, art, theater, or even a festival in the park, we can rent out the kitchen, the catering portion of it, to either the restaurants or to another caterer for making food, selling things for the people that are going to be at the venues. It will be a wonderful way to bring more revenue to the town and be a win-win situation. I want you to please take into account how many times the decisions made by council have been made hastily because some thought we were in a do-or-die situation, and the results of these decisions made hastily now have us with storefronts, a lot of square footage in Riverside Plaza and Riverwalk sitting primarily empty. I know I vote with my money. If the service or food isn't happening at a restaurant, I don't continue to spend my money there. If owners or employees of a retail establishment are rude or unpleasant, I don't spend my money there either. if the decisions are not progressive or forward-thinking, I don't vote for the candidate either. We need to focus on the next generations when making this decision and slow down the process and allow the citizens to have time to really enjoy the park as a park for what we see at this time. We need to be thinking about lifelong decisions regarding the parcel. Let's think before acting. Making fast decisions are the ones we usually regret. Has anybody asked RMI or the Roaring Fork Conservancy what they would like to see next to them? What will help them? You know, help them. They have quite a statement here. We have an opportunity for children to come here, be educated on sustainability, conservation, and see what we have. When we can make a beautiful river park and we can allow people to come here and have the venues that we like, people spend their money here. And I want to thank the council for listening, and I think the taxpayers of this town have a right to vote on what's going to happen there. Thank you.
Let's see, tall guy in the back.
Tall guy in the back, is that it? You're looking good tonight, man.
Sorry.
I want to be short, I'm not going to talk about our long-range plans. I'm a selfish guy. I live across the street from the park. I'm tired of looking at mud. What's the short-term plan? I'm not talking about 20 years from now, or who's going to benefit? Are we going to green that up? Rick, you know what I'm talking about? Hydro, what do you do? Hydro?
No, you're looking at mud.
Can we green it?
Yep.
Well, the big decision is made. Can we make it green?
Yep.
Is it possible? By the next meeting, can we have an answer?
Oh, I thought you wanted it green by the next meeting.
have one now.
Exactly.
We have one now?
Answer the
Yeah.
question.
The idea is to plant grass, actually put irrigation pipes on top. July, August, to have most of it greened up.
Oh, wow. So we after summer?
Well, it's gonna have to grow during May, June, and July.
When is it going to start?
In about 2.5 weeks that I can.
Tomorrow would be nice. And I'm not going to bother you people anymore, but I got to say, Mike and Tim, man, them guys are awesome. And you, bring it up, Butch. Don't let us lose Butch, folks. Good night.
Thank you. Okay, far back first. Yeah, let's start back.
My name's Roy Chorbajian. I think the key word here is preserve. Once we lose this land, it's gone forever, so think very carefully about it. You know, there are other areas for this hotel and condominium development. There's the south side of the river, which will not obstruct the view planes. It's treed. There are other locations in the core area, so think of that. Also, you know, I wonder if anyone has thought about, done research on the traffic, dumping all that traffic on Two Rivers Road, which gets very icy in the winter. And as far as luxury condominiums, I said last time I was speaking, I live in a luxury unit, and there's like eight units for sale. There hasn't been a sale in like 3 years. River Valley Ranch built a ton of luxury condos. In the last 18 months, there hasn't been one sale, and they have far greater amenities than will be offered here. So let some common sense rule on this decision. Now there are other ways to bring vitality to downtown. I wrote a little letter to the paper last week. If we could somehow do a hot springs pool without, I know we don't have hot springs, but if we could geothermically preheat water and have a Glenwood type hot springs pool, you wouldn't bring thousands, you'd bring tens of thousands of people here in the winter. Think of all the skiers reserving one night after skiing to come down here, eat dinner, go back on a bus. It's just a no-brainer, and there's 5 acres behind the library that's for sale. You ought to think of that property. Also, if we're going to have events on the park, this would be a great safety valve and overflow for parking if there are big events. You know, what's going to happen if it gets real successful? Where's the parking going to be? So let's do some overall comprehensive thinking on this. Also, we ought to think, you know, the town manager has a very savvy financial advisor, and think about buying this CDC property. You know, once it's gone forever. You know, Glenwood Meadows, when they first came about, they convinced the Glenwood Springs to lay, you know, 1.25% or 1.5% tax to build some of the infrastructure and the roads leading to Glenwood Meadows. Now, I would think maybe 0.25% increase in taxes for those that favor keeping this property pristine, you know, put it to a vote, you know, to the voters. And, you know, there are other ways to satisfy the retail element, but my final thought is in 1992, when the country was in big political disarray as it is today, Ross Perot was running for president, and there was an op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal by a very credible economist who was a supporter of Ross Perot, and he said, don't look for a savior. These things will happen over time and incrementally, and just take your time and do the right thing. Thank you.
Yep.
I ordered a flight for your own way.
Brian Miller, I live in Basalt, downtown. I'd like to say a couple things. As I've listened through the comments tonight, I've just kind of made some notes. Didn't come in here with really anything to say, but first, sustainability is not subsidized. I think that is the forefront of the whole conversation. There is a way that the town can, like Steve said, end up with the view plane you're looking for. However, it's going to include some sort of development to offset the cost of such without the town having to seek funds to buy it. Seems like a win-win. There was a vote, a bond passed, it was approved. I was against it, I've said that in this room before. I was against it because I didn't want to subsidize a layer of mud that we're watching at and how long it's going to take to draw out. I'd like some answers to questions. I don't expect them tonight, but I assume they will come out. How much money is left from the bond that was approved and voted on? If the board decides to move forward and purchase this parcel, you're going to have to come up with funds. I assume that you're going to need the town to vote on that to pay off said funds unless they are given to you without it. Economic vitality, I keep hearing that word. I'd love to know the economic vitality of existing town parks, minus the farmer's market. That is one thing that brings people to this town. They stay on for lunch. Take the rest of the parks downtown. Please tell me where we're making money on this. How's it paying for itself? I didn't get Lowe's response to the plan that's on the wall. Would love to have known what their thought was. And lastly, I look at 8D and Resolution 19, and there's a recommended motion by the mayor. I'm wondering which plan on the wall is she recommending that we vote on, or that this board is going to vote on. Thank you.
Brian, I think probably Mike Scanlon can get back to you specifically on those questions.
Thank you.
Because I think he knows all those answers. Okay, Greg, then Norm, then Jay.
A couple of things. I'll make this brief. My name is Greg Sugars, and respond to Rick Stevens and also to Mike. The plan immediately above what the council drafted last Friday, the plan immediately above that was never presented to DAAC. Let me repeat that. That was never presented to the DAAC. It showed up this spring about a month ago. So unfortunately, you don't have the right information and you need it. If I'm wrong, God strike me dead, but I'm telling you, it was never. That showed up in the first time we walked in here about a month ago, and showed up on the wall, because that's the first time we saw two sets of condominiums there and a hotel encroaching into the front space. So that, I'm so sorry. That's a new element. So, we never discussed that in that fashion. The second thing is that I have a copy of the Basalt Chamber, and on page 15, this is the 2014-2015. Page 15, nestled at the confluence of the Frying Pan and Roaring Fork rivers, Basalt is the only town in North America which boasts two sort of thing, but none of us, unless you have a really good memory going back 60 years, none of us could ever see or envision what we're seeing today. When you come down here to this intersection and you look at it, and every time I come to this intersection now, all spring it's been like, wow. And you say, well, you know, we always knew we had the river, but this is actually the connectivity that the DAAC talked about, the connectivity between downtown and the river, and it is there, and you can see the river. Now I'm 6'4", maybe if you're 5'4" you can't, but you can see the river. And one of the key elements of the river you can see is the bend in the river, where the sun literally comes right down and you see the whole expanse of the river, not just from the side, you're looking down the river. But guess what? It does matter that that hotel encroached on the park. So when the hotel encroaches on the park, you don't see that. You see it if you're way over, but you don't see it coming out of here. It blocks it. It'd be like going to a football game and you got these choice seats at the game, and all of a sudden you're sitting behind a pillar. You paid top dollar for that, you're sitting behind, you can't see. It is a big deal. Now, is there a solution to this? Yeah, sure. The hotel didn't have to encroach on the park. The hotel encroached on the park because those two sets of condos pushed it there. So you say, okay, if they're not there, the hotel will get pushed back. That leads to the next problem. The problem is, as we're hearing from everybody, including Jim, there's a real question about viability of the hotel. So the hotel, I don't want to get into this too much because I'm not the expert on this per se, but what I'm saying is that the hotel would have to have some kind of a theme to make it a reason to come to this hotel. Maybe a combination of themes. Maybe it's a fishing lodge. Maybe it's a fishing lodge and Trip Adams' museum hotel as well. It may be a combination of things that has to make that work. We just said that's too problematic. We can go in a different direction. What I'm thrilled about right now is that this has been separated. The park has been created, and the park, the town agreed to the space they have there, the visual, the physical, and the psychological connection from downtown to the river and vice versa has been restored. And we can all move forward from there on that section. I don't know if we want to get into too much other stuff, but it does matter that that hotel encroached on that. We did not decide on that. And the space to the left of that, there could be a lot of discussion about that. And whether we buy the area back and then ask for some form of government funding, that sort of thing, so forth, so be it. That could be the next discussion. If we at least can have this as a done deal, then we can move on to the next discussion and decide where we want to go. As this valley gets more crowded, that park's going to become more valuable. And it's not just like any other park. It's not like park 2 miles from the river. It's not like a park that's a passive park where you walk by and look at seedlings. This is an active park that will allow people to go to the river and vice versa. That can be used for any number of things. Something we can't even foresee yet. But what we should think about is whatever we build next to that, if we do build next to that, there has to be a compatibility issue. There has to be a synergy that they can work together. And that's the other issue relative to the hotel. Proximity of the hotel to the park, there can be, probably would be regular conflicts there. So there has to be either a lot of a buffer in between or find something more compatible. We have a lot of creative people in this valley. A lot of creative people that are looking for a home right now in the Mid-Valley. I think we can create something that's, symbiotic. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate the council sitting down and spending their extra time last Wednesday reviewing all this stuff outside of the regular meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. Norm, gotcha.
Can I ask a question first?
My name is Norm Clayson.
Yeah, can we get that proposed map and the Lowe's mission concept put into the same scale? So that the dimensions are relatively accurate, because I think that throws people off significantly. As I look at it and imagine what the distance is along Tudor Road where that view plane goes through and the intersection boundary of the developable property, and I look up above, I think the point to see is pretty important. There's just a little piece left over, and I'd like to see that to scale.
About superimposing the road.
That'd be fine. At the same scale.
See-through kind of thing.
And we do have a text scale, I just didn't put it up there.
Oh, and also you gotta realize too that if you talk about scale, the reason why Lowe gave us that was because they wanted 4 stories. And so you all of a sudden got major vertical because of giving us a little bit, because you remember they said if you don't get 4 stories, you get this. So I just want to make that absolutely clear. This is not an apples to apples discussion.
Well, no, but it is from the point of view of the area of the viewplane. There's an apple over here,
Right.
that Lo put out there, and there's an orange that we looked at Friday morning. Put them together, and let's see what the difference is. Whether it's 3 or 4 doesn't matter. But all we're talking about is green space. That's all I'm talking about,
Okay.
not stories.
I can live with that.
Yeah, I'd like to see the DAC also on that superposition.
Okay, can we let Norm go now?
Yeah,
Okay,
sorry,
Norm,
Norm.
let's try the skin.
My name is Norm Clayson. I've been in the valley since 1962, and I've watched a lot of these things come and go. And one of the things that I just wanted to address is some people keep saying slow down, but I can remember 20 years ago when we first went through this first drill on this with the River Master Plan. Nothing ever happened. 12 years ago we did the bridge to bridge. Some things happened, but it always just keeps getting stalled and put away. Now we go through the process, our town process, and I don't want to debate what's going to go where and how high it's going to be. I just want to address the council and Madam Mayor and say there is a CDC parcel. There is also park parcels. The 2 park parcels combined are 5.3 acres. It's a lot of acreage. And one has to ask themselves, if you had an extra acre, you now have 6.3 acres of park. That's very substantial. I don't think that we relocated 360 people to build just a park. The town itself, I do have a building in town, and the town itself is hurting. It really is hurting. If anyone doesn't agree with that, just walk around, take a look at the vacancy signs, ask the merchants how they're doing. They do pretty well in the summer, but come winter time, it's really tough, really tough. And if we don't get something to help anchor what RMI has done here in conjunction with that, I'm really going to tell you that I really don't think the town has a great future. It's really depressing. I think that RMI, I know RMI very well, worked for them for 4 years, and I can tell you right now that thousands of international visitors are going to come to see RMI. It's going to probably be, if not the most sustainable buildings in the world, it's certainly going to be one of them. RMI's been emphatic that they would love to see a hotel to accommodate their guests, because a lot of the people that come here as diplomats. They come here from all factions of the world, and you know, we do have hotels in town. I'm not sure that they're at the level that some of these people would like to be in. And if it's not here, they're going to go elsewhere. They're going to shop elsewhere. They're going to stay elsewhere. They'll come and visit the RMI. But you guys have got a decision. We got 2 parcels, a park parcel, and we've got a CDC parcel. You've got to just get after it. Do something. Say, I don't care if it's this plan or a modification of this plan. Come to a decision and say, we're going to put this property for development. Then entertain whoever comes your way. Look at it. Analyze the different opinions. But don't just keep it in limbo. If you just keep this thing in limbo, it's just going to stay there. You've got to do something. I'm encouraging you, at your next gathering, come right out and say, that parcel is for development. Period. End of story. This land is for a park. Now let's start planning for those 2 things. But just being in limbo is not doing anybody any good. I understand why people want to have a big park. I don't know why they need more than 6 acres down there. That's a lot of land. And I really don't see how a great deal of income is going to come from that park. And I know there's a lot of you that maybe feel differently, but if you think about the town, we've had events here in town. We can't even get volunteers to even hold our or river days. I mean, you're going to have a park, no volunteers, it's going to be a park. How many people are going to come down every day, every week, come to the park? Whether you're local or you're going to come a couple of times. It's going to be beautiful. There's 5 or 6 acres there. But without something to help this town survive on that parcel, I think you're looking at a very sad situation for our town. And I encourage you to make a decision. As long as we can't have a vote until whenever or however that happens, because I think it's a great idea, and get it over with. If you can't make the decision, put it to the town, let them vote. But let's just get on with it. I just think, I look at people in this room that I know as friends and I know as neighbors, and I see us butting heads, and I'm saying to myself, these are the same friends that I'm going to see and eat with. I don't want to see this anymore. I'm tired of it. Just do something so that we don't all sit here butting heads and making enemies out of each other and hearing people snicker and carry on. Just do it, as Nike says. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for Nora. On your 6+ acres, are you including the park on both sides of the river?
Yes.
Also the park that comes from the library down at the river?
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify
And
that.
I'm throwing in, if that opens up,
If that opens up.
another acre.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Jay. Jay.
So first of all, I want to thank so much the town council and the mayor for listening to the incredible amount of feedback that has happened in the last couple months, all the letters to the editor, everybody who's come to these last meetings, just actually in the last month, and having the cojones to do what the people have said, the majority of the people have said they want, which is a little bit more open space. That must have been really difficult to do. We appreciate you listening to the people and responding to that particular thing. Thank you. I also think it's absolutely awesome that the CDC is willing, after all they've been through, to partner and work out something that they think is going to be better for the town. The CDC owns that property. They just made an amazing, very detailed recommendation, people. Why don't we follow that recommendation? Why don't we at least look at it? The work session, to meet with these folks, to use their expertise to move forward in owning that property, seems like an excellent idea. Even see if it's feasible with the town people that we have, the financial advice that we have, why not? The other thing is an advantage of joining in these meetings a little bit later in the process is that everything comes at you that's happened for the last 3 years. So I've read all the reports. I've read this report that was done 2 years ago that contains quotes from so many citizens. It was set up on the storefront in downtown. Many of you probably participated. I participated back then. I've read the DAAC report. I've read every letter to the editor. I've read every editorial. I have them all right here, thanks to my fabulous roommate who reads them and clips them out. And I can tell you that the vast majority of the people want the same thing. They've been saying the same things over and over again for years. And it's not condos. That's just not what people have been saying. And most people haven't even been saying they want the whole thing to be a park. Everybody pretty much agrees. You have the statistics. The stats are out there. Even just this right here has probably 300 pithy little comments, and they're all the same thing as everything everybody said here tonight, as everything everybody said in the last open house meeting, as everybody said in the meeting at the library. It's the same 10, 15 things over and over again. So we actually have an amazing direction in which to head. It's just, what do you do about the financial burdens that are on the property, which we trust you and the CDC to come up with an amazing solution that will help us with this amazing property. And regarding Lowe's, just because somebody wants to marry you and they're very, very nice and they seem like they're a really good person and they ask you to marry, it doesn't mean you should marry them. It does not mean that they're the right person for you. Nothing against Lowe Enterprises. They may not be the right person just because they were the first ones to ask and came early. Well, I think the first ones to ask came early to the party does not make them right for us. And we just need to remember that. We shouldn't be acting from a responding to that basis. We need to buy the property and be able to paint a picture of what it is we actually need. And then we have a group of people, in fact there's tons of people who are really active and involved in this, but we have a group that
it's kind of formed and are working together because we actually really want to help move this forward. And we have a little bit of a mission statement, which is to help mindfully plan the one-of-a-kind riverfront park open space and adjacent space for use now and by future generations of Basaltines using the existing citizen input, which centers completely and conclusively on a desire for arts, events, family activities, and river orientation. Over and over again, you hear those exact same things. We chose to get involved because Basalt, as Greg said, is the only small town in North America with 2 gold medal fishing rivers flowing right through what is already a very charming mountain town. We desire to enhance, preserve, and develop the crown jewel that's out there for the common good, whatever that is. As we know, this is the only opportunity for something amazing in a location like this anywhere, ever. So we would like to do what we can to partner with you and help and assist where that may be necessary. And thank you for taking some steps to move forward. And thank you, CDC, for your ideas. Over here first. Go ahead. Oh, thank you.
Hi, I'm Sandy Kaharchak. I have a vested interest too because I live in Twin Rivers condo, so we gotta see what's out there. But I want to thank the council, the people that went to breakfast. I mean, I think it's great that what you did. You really listened to the people. You followed what they wanted. You opened up that window to what they wanted. I mean, I think it's fantastic that you did that. And I want to thank Lowe also because I think they've been kind of in between 2 doors. I mean, I understand what he's saying. We tried to do what we thought the CDC wanted, or I'm sorry, no, the DAC wanted. And we came up with this plan, and all of a sudden it's not right. And of course, I mean, I was the first one that said, oh, I don't want it too high or whatever, too tall. But I think that I'm hoping that they stay at the table. I really am, because I think they could come up with something that is a good hotel. My question, obviously, is about the brown area that could possibly be built on. And so the question to the council, if that's going to be offered to Lowe for condominiums. That's a question, but I don't know, and because I do remember a lot of people didn't want anything built on Lions Park, and obviously I'm concerned about that. But so that's my question to the council is that I think it's called potential building on the brown area. If anybody in the council has any answers to that, I mean, is that something that's going to be offered to Lowe to make it financially viable? And
Sandy, what we're going to do is take all the comment first. That's just works better that way.
Great,
So,
great.
clear in the back.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Patty. I was just pestering Michael from the CDC. It was such an incredible opportunity to hear that he was saying that he would collaborate with the town to help buy it. So I was whispering in his ear going, so can we count on that? He's going, as much as he possibly could, as much as the CDC could, collaborate with the town to make it so that it's very plausible financially for the town to purchase the property. Realizing, of course, there's a lot of details and so on. I don't have those details, but I'm wanting to just voice the enthusiasm for realizing the tremendous opportunity that this is. And so I guess there's a way too, also after purchasing the property from the CDC, that there's wonderful opportunities to recoup the money and more. And Mark knows about those things, and I can't say so. If it's all right, I'll just ask him to say it.
Well, I was just talking to Patty about the entitlements. The value is in the entitlements. The town does not have to buy that open space like it's been phrased, it's been couched. The town has to buy back that open space. If the town loads that other parcel with the entitlements, that parcel is worth far more than $2.5 million. So to be thinking in our minds that we have to buy back that amount of land is wrong thinking.
Let's see, Kathy
Front row and.
I'm Kathy Click, and I was a member of the DAC, and I'm also a member of the Basalt Affordable Community Housing Group. And I just want to say that I think that as a lot of people have said, we need to move forward. And if moving forward is to acquire the property back from the CDC, so that we have what the CDC proposed as the entire parcel, including Marino Park and Lions Park, and we have an opportunity to take the burden, like Michael said, off of that little tiny pink spot. We have a lot of property that's possible for development. We have a lot of things that we all want, and I'm just thinking that if we can spread it out and not have a ship's prow down there all by itself and everything else is blank, that in order to do that, if we have to buy the parcel back, then I am in favor of exploring that possibility. Okay, front row.
Rock, scissors, paper.
I'm Jerry Terwilliger. I live in Homestead Drive, and I want to thank the council for coming up with this concept. It's really gratifying to see that, and I do disagree with Steve Chase about that triangular piece. Of course, I've disagreed with Steve Chase for the last 2 years. There are a number of us on the DAC. You should be. There are a number of us on the DAC who pushed for everything across from Lions Park to be open space. And in fact, I was told at the end of DAC that that last ellipse that pushes into that space was going to be moved back, and it didn't happen. It's there, so everybody thinks that's what DAC wanted. And I'm not exactly sure that DAC did want that. At least I didn't. And I did not vote for the final report. So I think we need to take CDC up on their offer, pursue purchasing the whole thing, and keeping that green portion you have come up with as a park, and then work on the pink portion. And I want to thank you for doing that. That's superb. Thanks a lot.
Okay, I'm Sandy Holmes, and I've lived in the valley for almost 30 years, but in Basalt proper. I was in unincorporated Picken County for a long time, but I've just been in Basalt proper for 4 years. And I want to say, first of all, I rode my bike down to Carbondale today, and as I rode, I thought about how divided we've become. We're one valley, but we're 4 towns. We're Aspen, we're Basalt, we're Carbondale, we're Glenwood. As I rode, I went from East Basalt to West Basalt, and I thought we're divided there. We're divided between Southside and Old Town. We're just divided, and now this is dividing us more, and really, we're a little town. We need to start coming together. I think we've got consensus. We want to plant grass there. We want the summer to be vibrant. We all want our businesses to thrive. We want our town to survive and thrive, but we all have different ways and thoughts about how to get there. And I think if we can try and figure out the things that we can agree on, like buy the parcel so that you can plan the whole thing, it may make a lot more sense for the hotel to go across the river by the library and the post office. Who knows? I mean, but if we've got the whole scheme, the whole thing, then the planning process can start. And I think planting the grass so that we don't have a blight and dust, blowing all over our businesses all summer, is something we can all agree on. And then we can move forward, and we all want this town. I mean, we wouldn't have this participation if we didn't want this town to be successful. So my thought is we all want the same thing. We just have a different way of getting there. And it's time we join up instead of keep dividing between, the different entities. So.
Thank you, Sandy. Any other comments out there? Yes, sir, Mr. DeFranco.
Madam Mayor, just for an abundance of clarity, all Lo did was bring forth a plan commensurate with the general recommendations and principles of DAC. And we actually, Greg, did bring that forth pretty early in the process. I think it was in January. But it's just a plan. It's just an idea. And we thought that it conformed in large measure with the DAC recommendations, but there's no vested interest in that. And it's not a problem if people don't like that plan. So I repeat again, we're more than happy to work with the town, and should they acquire the CDC parcel, we're delighted to work with the town in a public-private venture to produce what the town wants. But we're not selling that plan, it was just a point of departure, and it's fine if the town wants to do something else. And we're more than happy to be cooperative corporate citizens to see if we can do something in implementing what it is the town decides it wants to do. I just want to be real clear about that.
Okay, Thomas Fenton.
Jim,
Smith.
can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
With respect to the map up here, proposed downtown planning map that's in front of the council today, I don't want to put you on the spot, but are you prepared to take a position on what's being proposed there?
On that plan, the big one right there,
This one right here.
we would have no problem in implementing a development on a plan of that nature. I think Steve pointed out earlier, you know, look at those two things in scale to see how much you gain by pushing development back. But again, it's the town's choice. If the town wants to push development back, that's fine. We will look and be open and transparent with the character of the economics, and we're more than happy to work with the town on whatever the town decides, including that plan. Or there was another plan, I think it was called Plan Number 4, that called for combining the Lions Park with the CDC parcel and having a different format. And we see viability and potential as that as well. So we're quite open, and we have no vested interest and don't think our plan is the only plan. It's, you know, and we're not trying to, it's like asking a waiter, I got 6 things on the menu, what do you recommend? And he says, the pork, and then suddenly you start attacking it. The pork, how could you want the pork? Why would you recommend the pork? What the hell are you telling me? I never liked pork. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. So that was just a point of departure that's hopefully helpful to everyone. And we remain ready to work with the town in an open, transparent, cooperative fashion to try and do what the town wants to do, and we have the council make that determination. We're more than happy to work with you.
Okay, Bernie, I'm going to call on you. And Mark, I'm going to ask if, can you hold it, because I think we've listened to several people a couple times, and if there's somebody that hasn't yet spoken, I would rather take one more comment. No offense, I just feel like a couple times is enough. Okay, Bernie.
Well, I
Oh,
can
I'm
wait
sorry,
for
Sharon.
Sharon.
Sharon wants to go.
I can wait.
Okay. I have a question for Jim Francis. Can I do that? Have you considered a condominium hotel combined rather than separate condominiums?
We have.
Like say Viceroy, because you know my thought has been that the people that are going to be coming to RMI, they're going to be from all over the world, and they'll probably stay more than just a few days in a
Right.
hotel.
Exactly.
And so, like with the Viceroy, let's say, they have a small kitchenette. It doesn't prevent people from still going out and dining and using other facilities. But anyway, that's my
No,
thought.
we've considered that. We operate the Gant in Aspen, which is one of the oldest condominium hotels in Nevada. And it's been operating successfully for 40 years.
Right.
I would turn as well to the comment the gentleman made about the entitlements. When you decide what you want and you entitle the property, that's where you generate value. And so to the extent that you were to buy the CDC parcel, there's an opportunity to recover that value depending on what it is you determine you want to do. And we're more than happy to help you with that.
That's great. Thanks, Jim. Okay, any more comments out here? Going?
Butches.
Mark, please. Seriously. Do you want to hear what we want to say too?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I do.
Okay, if it's 30 seconds or less.
It's 30 seconds or less. The only concern that I have with saying Lowe's go ahead with this, that parcel is worth far in excess of 2.5 million, and what will happen is the Lions parcel, which never was, thought of to become part of this, will become part of it, so will the recycle center, and that's just going to muddy the things up. So that's why I would encourage council to buy it.
Got it.
Thank you.
Bernie.
I have a few questions for Jim. Jim, I heard you say something, I don't remember the exact words, but maybe it was somewhat encouraging for the town to talk to the CDC about purchasing the property, but my understanding was your company has an option to purchase. What's your comment on that? existing situation?
We do have an option to purchase currently, but it does have an expiration date. And if we don't have any clear determination from the town as what they would deem acceptable, then I'm not gonna exercise the option because I'm not interested in getting into a cat fight with you guys.
So you, in principle, have no objection to the town possibly entering into negotiations with CDC?
No objection whatsoever, and we have long experience in many jurisdictions in doing public-private ventures, and we'd be more than happy to entertain it.
Okay, thank you.
Other council commentos? Rick?
I've been at this particular subject matter for about 25 years. And I've known about the confluence of the frying pan and the Roaring Fork for a long, long time. I've been aware that it's 40 miles of middle water for a long, long time. The town, in an initial step, years and years ago, to buy the confluence parcel across from 7-Eleven, that little sandy beach, for $275,000 to preserve the confluence of the Roaring Fork and the frying pan. It was a developable lot. It was located in Eagle County, and it could have supported whatever Eagle County had it zoned for at the time. That started a whole chain of events off that I've talked about in here before, that now is leading us to this final, 5-yard push here. And I agree with what you said up front here. This community has operated on single-purpose agendas for way too long, and the opportunity to compromise has come and gone. And that's why it takes us so long to get to the end zone, whether it's moving the post office or keeping one library in town or whatever the heck it is. It's time to make a decision and give somebody some direction as to what the community wants to look like. The other thing I want to comment is about the CDC and the mission of social justice. When Bach was created, which I was part of creating it with Kathy, we invited the CDC in to be a member of that board in order to access their resources and expertise and help us build some affordable housing. That was the reason they were there. I look back on that today and I think it was probably a mistake. What happened was that they got the idea that they could partner with the town and remove people from the floodway, which was really the opportunity that we were trying to get accomplished for 20 years. And they went through a process where they got a special zoning consideration, they got a shortened development review, they had buildings all along the streetscape, and then, they got a little bit in over their heads. I think the town had to step up and help with the relocation effort to the tune of $900,000. And what we did was we relocated those people where they could have a better standard of living. And then we said, we're going to develop this property and create jobs and opportunities for those people to work closer to home and not have to get on a raft bus and go to work for the ski company. And now we're being asked to, step up to the plate again and kind of make them whole and let them walk away from the deal, the partnership. And I don't see any social justice in that. I don't see any justice in that at all. And I think that, to Jim's point, he mentioned public-private partnership. I think the CDC needs to be a partner in this opportunity until the end, and then we'll see what they get. But I'm not about to step out on the limb and say we should buy the parcel and then, decide what is going to happen with it, because I can tell you what will happen with it. Same thing that's happened for the last 2.5 decades. The other thing I think is that the community does need to come together on this and make a decision on what they want to see here. If it's all park, great. If it's all development, great. But I really think that if it doesn't go much further, there's a timeline for setting a special election, Pam, which is what, 120 days?
Given that it's a fall election, we're going to have to guess.
Some time frame like that. So we're pushing that envelope. So if we can't decide and can't set a direction in the next 30 days, then we need to discuss whether or not we're going to have a special election. And that's my 2 cents on it,
Other?
Well, the item on the agenda is actually the resolution to go ahead, not with an established plan and not with a commitment from the town that this is the only thing that's going to happen there, because if you read it, it's identifying a planning map as a potential buildings and park plan. And as I've been saying from the start, there's no way you can't have. There's no way that it's not possible. That's a double negative.
There's
sorry.
no way that you can't say that, Herschel.
Yeah, I
You're
can't say it
doctor.
that way. Yeah. There has to be a way. Is that better?
That's
there,
good.
There has to be a way that it can be a gorgeous park and have appropriate development there that fits in with the town and our goals for what we're trying to do. I truly believe that. And so this that is on the menu is not locking us in. It shouldn't cause, it's identifying the fact that is the way we want to move forward. And as I've said before, you know, the Lowe's proposal is intriguing. You know, intriguing means it's something we should look at and see how it might be modified to fit a direction. You know, this is not a goal, this is a direction. So I absolutely agree with Norm. You know, if you let this sit and flop there on the land like a dying fish, it's going to just lay there. You know, we need to look into this. If we can find something with Lowe or whomever else that might fit on here, we need to get going and look at them and get them in the process so that our planning department can pick them to death. You know, the slow death by crow pecking, and then planning and zoning have a hack at them and see if indeed we can't come. I think this whole process with you guys coming in and saying there's a better way to do this has been entirely positive, and I think we've got great input. I think we have general agreement with the majority of people that some appropriate development and a gorgeous park is what we want here. And I'm going to vote yes on this resolution tonight because I also agree with the many people who have said we need to get going forward.
Rob.
On that note, Herschel, thanks. We met early Friday morning and came up with that proposal on the wall there. And I think it made the council pretty much in agreement, happy with that as a blueprint. People who wanted more park space, more green, more open space, you got it. People who wanted development downtown, you got it. So I think we did a really good job of finding a sweet spot for everybody in the room. I want to thank Jim for his flexibility on this matter. You know, so getting the details, I think we like the hotel along the river. Nobody wanted condos along the river. We moved them away. We parceled Lions Park. Use that for affordable and free market housing. So I think the council did a really good job in making progress, going forward, and coming up with something that should make just about everybody in this room happy.
Does somebody say something down there? Okay. Anybody else? Yes, Bernie.
I can understand Rick's frustration. He articulated, I share some of it, with the history of our partnership with the Community Development Corporation. I don't think we should let that color our judgment going forward in any negotiations with them, even though we were disappointed by their non-performance on the relocation of the trailer residents, and the city took some political flack for having to do that on its own, and the staff carried it out brilliantly and very successfully. So I think I've spent 2.5 hours with Mike reading all the foundational documents going back to the Manaus Fund and the CDC. And I can tell you, it's very iffy, the whole thing. But it was agreed on, and the original agreement was to build affordable housing on that site. That's where they came from. And then it morphed, that it was going to be this other developer was going to bring nonprofits, a hotel, and affordable housing. Then that developer did not prove capable of delivering on that vision. And now we're here with Jim with condos and a hotel and maybe some affordable housing. So, but, you know, I wasn't there back then, I can criticize now. What I see is a golden opportunity for us that has been created despite the missteps and, but I think it was done by all parties of goodwill, wanting to do something positive for Basalt and wanting to do something positive for affordable housing. So I think we shouldn't lose that at all. And then we came to the open houses where we really pretty suddenly got an outpouring of public sentiment for park. I didn't hear necessarily most people saying all park. I heard a lot of people saying continue to work with the developer for some reasonable mixture of park, open space, and development. And that certainly has always been my position, that economic vitality is quite crucial to the downtown, and that preserving the unique public front yard of that river park, which defines our town, is also quite crucial. And I guess I was somewhat moved by Norm's statement. I wasn't there Friday, I was traveling, and normally my cautious instinct would be to want to table this or talk about it some more, but I think it's time that we move on. I think, to me, this is a very rough plan. It's more of an intent and a goal. I think it's important that we pass it tonight because if, and that's a big if, we get into any discussions about purchasing the CDC, I think this would give both major factions in the town, which I think now is about 50-50. It might have been 60-40 development before the public process started, but I think it would give both major factions a win, and it would give people some confidence that if we did buy the land, we weren't buying it to sterilize it from development, that there was some appropriate level of development that was going to take place and some appropriate level of park. So based on what I've heard from you all and so far from my council members, I would feel comfortable voting to approve this resolution and that matter.
One more for me. I took a, what was it, I left in 2004 and came back in 2012 on board to the specific goal of implementing the urban master plan and restoring downtown after having to deal with Willits and the Roaring Fork Club, and South Side, and all the contentious land use applications that came before us. And I really do think that if we focus on downtown, we can help eliminate some of the sprawl that could occur further down Valley. The other thing that every election that I've ever been involved in and every election I wasn't involved in was always about land use. And it's only a year away, and if this election turns out to be another one about land use, I think I'm just going to throw in the towel. This community really needs to get together and bring this home and do something for all of us instead of for what you specifically ask for. You'll get your piece of the pie, but everybody else needs to have a little bite too. And if we don't get there, I really don't want to see what this next election's like. And that's why if we can't go forward on this, if we get stalled out again, I'll be the first one to move to have an election in November and put it to bed.
Sure. I look at this as a really incredible opportunity for the town to come together. I don't see it as a major division. I've been talking to a lot of people. I'm on council. I have a lot of friends who live in Basalt and a lot of people who don't live in Basalt who are talking to me about this. And I think it really comes from the fact that we have an incredible opportunity. And we don't want to screw it up. We want to do it right. And I personally look at this going, I was there Friday morning. I have always said that I can see some development on this parcel. And I'm going to stick to that because I truly believe that this is a great place to have some compatible development and a park. How we get there is the big question. And so, to me, I was looking at this as a great opportunity to continue this engagement of the community to make sure that they see what this V looks like. Like, how do you know what it is? People came at the last meeting saying, what is the V? And what does that mean? How big is it? You can say numbers of acres and all this other stuff, but a lot of people, now that we have this openness out there, if we could truly see it, I think we can get some really good feedback, because unlike things in the past, and I've been part of council originally and some really contentious land use issues, this hasn't been as contentious. People have passion on both sides, but at least here I feel there's some compromise. There's not just one or the other. I think we're going to get both. And the great thing is if people can see it and we do a process. I'm not happy with necessarily approving a map per se without the public looking at it, but I like, you know, basically that we should work with the CDC and we should be working with the Lowe's who has the development option on this to see how we're going to do this financially with all of them. And then I see that we should direct council staff to take the next step to see what that looks like and to see how we move forward, because I personally don't want to sit through another 10, 15 meetings to hear the same things and to hear both sides of the community on the same things. And I would really be bummed if this went to an election, because that would divide the town. And because you potentially would get either too much development or all park, and does that solve the town's real needs? I think we can come together. I think we can come to a compromise. I feel it, I see it in this room just by what we heard tonight from people who usually were on other sides. I think we can come to a compromise and getting close. I mean, I totally don't think we even need the resolution, because it's just kind of superfluous. It's just something that we don't need. We can just continue forward because we're starting to move forward. But, you know, to me, I really like the fact that the CDC came out tonight and actually spoke for the first time since, you know, I've really been on council. I heard from the CDC about their vision. And the thing is, one thing that I have heard from the community is very confused on what do they own, where is what they own, and why do they own it, what they want to do. And so I'd like to clear that up. I'd love to keep staff directed to work with the CDC, because I do agree with this solution of, you know, the town owns it. The town then can quicker decide on how to develop the piece and build the park. And so that's why that was really exciting to hear them talk. I do like the fact that Lowe's is still in the room, thinking that they can actually work with that, because it's a dicey situation with an option contract and everything else, and I don't want to see Tom look at me harshly when I start talking about you know, the legalities of all that. But you know, I'm willing to keep on working on this. Originally, I potentially wasn't going to vote for this, but if the rest of the council is ready to move forward, I might be too, as long as we, you know, I would make an only addendum, like a little addition to this to say that we work, it's like there's nothing in here, it just says something on the fact that I would love to see us work on what the CDC was talking about and directing staff to have that conversation sooner than later to see what can be done with the purchase of that land, or what can be done with Lowe's as part of the solution of it. I would like to see it. I'd like to see something moving on it, because I want to see a park there sooner than later. And I don't want to see development happening there for the next 15 years. I'd like it to be developed sooner than later. So how do we get there? And Mike's shaking his head. But
the last sentence of section 3 actually allows us to do that. So the idea that you would be developing a master plan and park agreement for the council's consideration, we can start tackling financial issues, sort of how you would put together an acquisition.
Are you ready for a motion yet?
I'm ready.
I think you are. Huh?
Unless Mark wants to.
Yeah, I got a couple things. I tell you, this is a big deal. I've gotten so many emails from friends and acquaintances, you know, people I went to high school with or out of state, and you know, for that to happen, I know it's very important. They all have an opinion, even though they don't live here anymore. And then I reflect back on when I moved up to Snowmass to work up there. Base Village was all set to go, and then a referendum came out and delayed the project 18 months for the people to vote to see which way it wanted to go. I hate to see that happen. I'm kind of thinking, let's keep this ball moving and get something done. I agree with Rick on many of his comments. I'm not in a mind to bail out CDC at this point. I'd like to see them stay into the end. There was another plan presented to us on Friday that removed Two Rivers Road between the four-way stop and the old recycle center. I personally actually like that one better because it gave us more flow to the river and created one big park area. I also want to thank Jim for sticking with us. I mean, if I would rebuff somebody in marriage, like Jay said, I'd have been walking down the road already. I appreciate that. I'm going to vote yes on this because I'd like to see something at least get done.
Okay. First of all, I know some people kind of have a negative feeling about how it's going. Having been to really bad meetings, I have to say, I feel like this is an evolution of civility. I think we are so close together now. I don't see anything negative really happening. We're kind of starting to repeat ourselves a little, I'll give you that. So I think we can kind of stop that. Also, at our Friday morning breakfast, Rick had mentioned, because it was very nice just to have pretty much us there and actually be able to have a conversation, which we can no way have here, clearly. I mean, it's just not set up for that. But Rick had said that there was a feeling in the community that some of us on the council wanted all park and no development. And so let me just clear that up on the record. I have never heard anyone on this council, publicly or privately, ever say they wanted this all park. Every single one of us has always wanted some level of development. Some people were okay with the proposal that Jim brought in. I wasn't one of those, but I never said no development. No one here ever did. So, you know, I just wanted to get that out there. All of us are okay with a level of vertical, real development. And what those uses are, we need to decide. I mean, you know, we've heard so much about hotel that I'd be hard pressed, especially, I don't know why, the image in my mind when Mark at the last meeting said fishing lodge. I'm not a fisher person, and you know, maybe that's not the total thing, and there was art talked about, art hotels talked about. So, you know, I think that is probably in the mix. I also am excited about the possibility of talking to the CDC. We weren't sure we could say that, but it seems to be out there in the air now, and even Mr. DeFrancia seems like he's open to that conversation. And for me, it's not a matter of bailing out the CDC. I told Mike privately, and this is true, I don't care. It's not my job to bail out the CDC. My job is to get the best bang, do the rightest thing we can do with the only opportunity that we're ever going to have. And then there is some sense in looking at a bigger palette, if you know what I mean, and not trying to squeeze onto a single spot. So that would be my only reason to think maybe we should pursue that to some extent, because I also want to get the show on the road. I think everybody here wants to get this all happening. So there are pieces of this document that I'm not comfortable with. So I also would prefer that we didn't move with this tool. But if we do, I think, you know, there are some things that if they were changed, I could pass it. I just don't see the point of it when in reality we're talking about several different things now and not just this map. And that's what my attorney at home even said. Really? You want to say okay to a specific map? Okay. So I'm not comfortable with that. So anyway, but all in all, I'm very proud of this community, and I'm really happy that we're moving forward. I'm also happy that Jim is still here, because he seems like an okay guy. Also happy CDC's in the room. So,
Unless somebody has something else to say, I'm ready to make a resolution.
I had one more thing.
okay.
Motion
Well, and
for the resolution.
the one thing I wanted to say is, you know, when we talk about like bad things about what happened with the CDC, you know, really truly, I look at this going, we have a partner in the room that could help us to the next level on so many different things. We're not just talking about this little piece. If their funding can be used to help us with more social justice type of things, affordable housing, and, you know, finding ways to keep these people in the community, I really believe that as a whole, we should embrace that. And if that's why I want to keep them, I don't want, you know, all the supposedly, you know, bailing out and all this stuff. I don't want that language. What I'd rather have the language is we have a partner in the room. They're all willing to work with us. Let's work with them and then see what else they can do for us in this community, because I don't want to shun them, because we have a way to work with them in the future on so many other things. They came up with the funding for this. They helped us originally do it. There might have been some missteps on both sides along the way, but we have affordable housing issues. We have other issues, and if this group could really help us in the future, I want to make sure that we're working with them and we look at them as a true partner.
Why wouldn't this resolution? I don't see how this resolution would hinder us from.
No, I just hear people talk about, you know, it was all really just based on the fact that it has nothing to do with this resolution. It has something to do with the talk of the resolution and, you know, the CDC and the partnership. And I just want to make sure that we look at beyond that.
I move approval of the resolution number 19 series of 2015.
Second.
On the amended blue.
On the blue page.
Yeah,
Okay. So I
alternative language.
have some further discussion. I think there's about 3 seconds, so we got that. I would be more comfortable and would be able to support this if we took away the reference on section 2 regarding the map. Not comfortable with that map as specifically as it's a clear picture.
If there's a motion and a second, is there?
Yes, there is.
Seconded?
Yes.
You can move to amend it.
Okay, well, okay, I would move to amend this document to remove section 2 and also to strike references to the Low Enterprises Company specifically and just replace that with developer, so that this is not something that is perceived. I know it's not legal because it says every kind of wiggle room, but if something else were to happen that we like better, I want that available to us as a community.
So you need to get a second.
I'll second.
Vote on the amendment first.
Okay.
Third discussion.
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 I think the map is the meat on the bone here, and you know, map can change. This is just a concept. This has to go through a legitimate land use review process where everybody's going to come back in here and give their opinion 100 more times. So I think the map at least is something people can look at. It's visual. They can imagine it. We can go out there and set up stakes and do all this other stuff we've been talking about. We can quantify the amount of land that the CDC may have to be reimbursed for that isn't going to come out of the developer's pocket. I think there's a lot of things that this map relates to that centers us around the conversation. If we take it out, then we've taken out the meat.
Bernie?
I have to agree with Rick.
Okay.
The map's the meat. It doesn't lock us in unduly to any size, shape, height, use, or any other thing, but I think that's how you build the community trust, especially if we were to go as a town, and we may not need a vote for tax. We have very good bonding ratings. We may be able to issue various kinds of short-term or intermediate-term debt without necessarily going to a vote. And I see the map as crucial of building public trust that, you know, we are headed in this direction and that we would use those funds in a way that the community seems to have coalesced around in some level of agreement. And You know, I'm all for building consensus. And so I'm very impressed that that happened tonight. And I'm going to put aside some of my concerns. I do agree that we should take low enterprises out of that. That's too specific. It should be developer. I'll make a motion. We go up and down. We'll go up and down on that, right?
We need to vote on the motion.
Right, okay.
To amend.
So I would vote against the amendment
And you
because
can
of
come
what
back
Rick
and
said.
you'll
have a chance to.
another-
Okay. All in favor
Of the amendment.
of the amendment? Aye.
That was 3. That was
I don't know.
Yeah.
Jackie,
Three.
Bob.
Opposed?
Aye.
It fails.
Okay. Then you had another.
Then I
Propose
would
another
make,
amendment, you can do that.
all right, I would, Madam Mayor, I would like to make an amendment that we remove in section 3 the language that says Lowe's Enterprise and substitute that with the developer or development organization. And it says for council's consideration, and I would like to add in there, and public discussion.
Is there a
That
second?
when we are considering it, it's in a public work session type of meeting, and this is our master plan, what our town is going to look
Got
like
the mo-
for the next.
You made the motion, you need a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion?
You have a comment on that?
I have a question. If you make it generic, can it be that developer that the Roaring Fork CDC has identified? Because I don't think the Roaring Fork CDC wants me to be talking to developers that don't have an option on their property.
You know, you could change this if Lowe drops out of the picture.
Right.
Well, then that's fine if we can change it. Leave Lowe's in there.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Okay.
That's like a
We'll leave
slap
it.
in the face. To
We'll leave
Lowe.
it.
Okay.
As long as you have that in the consideration in a public meeting, you don't need to use it.
Okay.
So the only motion.
And so you're abandoning your amendment?
Yes.
He's
And we
withdrawing
have
his
yet to
motion.
vote on the original motion.
No, we did vote
We
on
did.
that one.
No.
On the
Oh,
original
the original?
motion.
Oh, the original motion. Okay.
So,
All in favor of the original motion, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
No.
two
Oh,
no's.
the original.
Jackie.
That's this one.
Wait a
The
minute.
motion to
On-
approve this
on the
resolution
approval
with the map as written.
Of this
Motion
It's moving
passed.
on.
resolution 19.
5-2.
Against, Jackie
I mean,
Dan, you want to read the results of that into the record?
Yes, go. 5-minute break.
oh, good. Voted no at the time.
This is now considered a.
You know, just another last word. I don't know what this is. That's the only reason why I didn't.
You mean on the record or on a break? We're on a break.
You're on a break?
Yeah.
What I would like to request of everybody is an opportunity to hold a joint work session with the CDC and the town and talk about a lot of these issues. And
Well, I understand that.
I understand that.
There are other debt
understand that the map process goes
It just works out that way sometimes. I apologize. But anyway,
Now you
so,
don't have everybody in the room waiting to comment on your side.
right, so, let's see, we're going back to the chamber report, I'm sure of it. If I can find that, I'm sure that's what it is. Yes, we are back. Thank you for your patience.
You're welcome, thank you all. So I am about to summarize in a year of action, a marketing campaign, a transit proposal, and a demographic study in about the time that one person described their vision for the future. So I'm going to talk really fast. So first of all, the Basalt Chamber Board and I would like to thank the town council and the town staff for making it possible for us to strengthen our efforts to increase vitality and build quality of life in Basalt with the grant that we received. I'm Robin Waters, and what I'll do is, I think you all have the document that I created. You probably haven't had a chance to read it unless you were reading recently. So I'm just going to go over very quickly the 3 components of the grant: marketing, transportation, connectivity between Basalt and Willits, and a demographic study, and then a couple of other things that were in the resolution last year. So first of all, the Chamber approached the marketing aspect of the grant from multiple angles. We developed some new ads based on the sort of hooked in Basalt concept and confluence of rivers, recreation, and culture. And we spread out with roughly 30% of the total grant plus our match into print media, electronic media, a wide range of areas based on a marketing strategy that we developed. And our approach was to look at vehicles with high value and long shelf life. So we focused more on the magazines that stuck around, TV, and some state exposure magazines. We vastly expanded the website. I don't know if you all have had a chance to look at it in the last few months, but has a great deal of information on recreational opportunities, stats about the county, how to move here, demographics. And our hits on the website are up approximately 30% since this time last year. So there are some measurables we can do, some obviously are a little vague. We simultaneously expanded and upgraded the newsletter and increased readership by roughly 25%, and more importantly, interaction with the newsletter, meaning people are hitting and linking and coming back. We're very committed to building strong relations with the media who have all left, because we feel, and in my background in marketing and PR, that it's important to take a proactive approach, provide human interest stories, good stories about the town. We can't just sit back. So that's something we've tried to do. We've had some front page stories. We've had coverage for our members for their ribbon cuttings, and quite a bit of radio. So let's see, community building is fundamental not only to us. Someone mentioned earlier we have a hard time getting volunteers. Part of that is we don't have a central kind of focus for our community. We don't have a local newspaper, we don't have a local grassroots radio, but we do have Facebook. And that's one avenue that we've developed. If you all have seen, it's a little bit excitable of late, the Facebook page, but it's the Basalt, Colorado community page. It's rising upwards of 800 people. And it's a very active, ideally it's designed for businesses to have a free way to promote their businesses, their events. Everybody can post. Lately it's been a little bit of discussion about town activity. And it's a way for people to air those views as well. So we also have participated in a lot of community events. We created the Creative Spaces program for downtown revitalization, the Set Your Sails program that I'm not sure you all know about with Basalt High School. It's very exciting, and it's going into its first pilot, and thank you all for your help in that. We organized the first, with the community's town support, public menorah lighting. I think was very moving. So economic vitality is hard to measure, and we've talked a lot about that lately, but I think that some of the indicators of vitality are built into what the Chamber is doing in our results. Some of you were at last week's annual meeting. We had almost 80 people. It's twice the number, as far as I understand, that we've ever had. We had very good response to that. Thank you, Susan, for speaking. Our membership has increased nearly 15% since this time last year, just 5% just in the last few months. The Basalt Community Guide and Directory is up from 68 pages to 100 this year, and it's going to be stunning. I think it'll be a really good tool for Basalt in our marketing. And then especially we've seen, and it was interesting what you said, Jackie, about the evolution of civility. And I think It was really lovely, very nicely said. And even since I've started, I've found a difference in the conversation in town, and there seems to be more positiveness, and certainly a bit about the chamber, but also about the town and our possibilities. And I feel the chamber has contributed to that in a certain way, and also all the work that's been done with our town planning. And so I'm very happy about that too. A big priority in or something that was mentioned in the resolution that's not part of the top 3 is the Basalt Downtown Business Association working with the chamber. And so I do want to share that I have been at all the BDBA meetings, the main meetings. I'm on the board now. We're working very closely together. This may scare you all, but Tracy and I and some other folks had a 4-hour luncheon on Saturday. So we're brainstorming, and it's, yes, I know, 4 hours. And it's very, very positive. Not at my table. I mean, not in my seat. But it's very good, and there was a lot of laughter. And so, and Tracy is going to participate on the chamber board in some way. We're talking about lots of collaborations. And I have all your comments on the side, so if I start repeating something you've said, stop me. So just moving on to so that was marketing, the first stage of the grant, and I'm sorry I'm not looking at the timing, but the second is transit options for greater connectivity between downtown Basalt and Willits to increase economic vitality, or as a driver of economic vitality. So very quickly on that, I've been working in some depth with RAFTA. We've explored RAFTA-provided services, which I will tell you, full RAFTA service is going to be upwards of $1 million with capital costs. But that isn't a stumbling block for us. It's just something that we consider for the future and as a possibility for budgeting. And David Johnson, planning director, created the Basalt Area Mobility and Accessibility Assessment, which is available. It's not in your packet, but it's available for review later. I also talked to Colorado Mountain Express about an external contracted service. They're not interested in changing their model. We looked at a locally supported shuttle service, and I have a second kind of little mini pilot proposal for that. But beyond that, and something that in the context of all the heaviness is quite doable, Mike had talked to me quite a while ago about the possibility of a fare-free service within the Basalt downtown to Willits area, and actually they're looking at sort of Snowmass to Elgibel. And that's something that's potentially quite doable. It would involve most likely a contribution from the town, but RAFTA, Dan Blankenship, David, they said if the county, if the town would like to consider that, you should let them know. It needs to be serious, and we can talk more about that, and they'll look into it. It needs to be vetted by the board. And also by their operations. So it's a possibility, and the idea again is we're not trying to move people and look at existing demand, we're trying to create that vitality and build that demand. So the only thing I'm not so crazy about that is I really love the idea of a little Basalt bus going around with Basalt advertising and having that visual connectedness around. So in any case, estimates are available and more reports, and what I'd like to suggest with this aspect is that perhaps we form a small working group of representatives from the town and the chamber, and RAFTA are willing to help, and some of the other people I've talked to see what's possible and incorporate pedestrian and bicycle options. So moving on from there into demographic study, in your the report that I prepared, we aggregated hundreds of pages of data. We contracted with a database system. This is one notebook for the 3-mile planning area. There's everything in here from how many guys buy shoes and who eats fast foods and transportation and costs. It's fascinating. Anyone can look at it, but it's relatively useless if you don't have an analysis. So I worked recently with a fellow from New Hampshire who actually has been to Basalt, and we drafted a little mini summary of just to give us an example of how we can use market trends and demographic data to guide us in our decision making, even as much as if there's a hotel proposal. You know, what will that do to the downtown area? So just to again try to move this along, the part I found most interesting in this was the gaps analysis. And that's kind of where the leakage is coming out from our town into other areas because we don't provide those services. So that's another area we can look into in more depth. So, again, everything we were trying to do is in collaboration. It's a big word for me, innovation, collaboration. We formed an economic development partnership at the end of last year, and it's a very professional, experienced group. Unfortunately, I am losing my chair of that due to other obligations, but I want to keep it going. Tim Walensky is in that group, and some bank presidents, and Mike has volunteered to sit in from time to time. So I would like to formalize that in some way so that we're really working with the town. If there's a discussion we can have about doing that and setting some objectives and some outcomes that we're really looking for. Those are the three areas. We had a requirement to do a 4-1 match, and if this was set up so you can see it, I'm not sure how well you can see that from where you're sitting. Yeah, it's bigger than here. All the numbers. Yeah. Basically, if I can summarize it very succinctly, we more than made the match, significantly more. We worked hard to do that. It came from our increased membership, from our magazine, from a slightly increase in dues, the economic development grant we got for $10,000 from Eagle County. So total revenues that we have generated and we are anticipating for the next year amount to about $66,000 in extra. So I want to thank you again for enabling us to be part of this process in a stronger way, and I hope that you will consider helping us to move on into the next year, and would love to have your thoughts on what we might do.
Thank you very much, Robin.
You're very welcome.
I don't know how exactly we're doing for thoughts right now.
No, later thoughts. Later thoughts, yeah.
Thanks very much. A lot of work went into your report, and it's a good one.
Thank you.
And how do we access that?
Pardon me?
How do we access that RAFTA study? Is it online anywhere? Or?
No, and this is a draft study. It's preliminary. I got permission from David and Dan Blankenship to present this, and we can just make copies for you in whatever way is best to do. Yeah, I can leave this with you now.
Alrighty.
I guess at dinner, right? You can give it. Sorry?
Okay. Thanks again, Robin.
You're very welcome.
Have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you. Is there a resolution?
There's a motion
To accept.
I move the town council accept the Chamber of Commerce annual report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you all.
Sorry, I left that hanging. Okay. Next item, public hearing and second reading of ordinance 3 of 2015, an ordinance of the town approving an amendment to chapter 6, article 5 of the Basalt municipal code related to amending the alcohol and marijuana buffer measurement methodology. That would be you, Mr. Scanlon.
There are a couple of people in the audience I know that want to speak to the ordinance. If you remember, the significant words were portion of the building instead of building. So those were the key words. So I know that Pete Tram is here, and I know that he has additional concerns or changes he would like to see in the ordinance. Is that correct, Pete?
Okay.
Can I make one comment on that?
Sure.
If there are additional changes that you want to consider, they can't be considered now. You'd have to come back because they haven't been published and proposed. So you can discuss it, but anything that hasn't been put out to the public as a proposed change can't be put in it right now.
Wouldn't you rather have your changes included in our discussion? Okay, that's what I mean. So what it seems like we should do then is table this to date certain, right?
Well, you can act on what's already been
Oh.
part of the public process. That
Okay.
part of it you can go with.
Yeah. So he
And we'd like to comment on that, actually.
you do, okay. This is a public hearing, so everybody gets to.
Yeah, do you need the staff presentation first?
done with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a presentation.
Good staff presentation.
Portion of the.
Yes, sir.
My name is Rob Holmes.
We're going to try to give you our attention now, Rob.
Thank you. I am one of the owners of Roots RX, which is the one recreational, operational marijuana store in Basalt. And you know, what I'm going to say may not be a surprise to you that I'm going to oppose this change. And you might think it's because it's a self-serving motive, because we don't want competition, and that's not the reason at all. I thought long and hard about entering into this business. You know, from the background that I came in, I was in the habit of doing something that was federally illegal. And you know, I looked at this industry and the state of Colorado and the amount of effort and time that was put into, you know, trying to establish rules and regulations for this business. And at a state level, there was a lot of input that was put into the laws and the regulations about how this business should be operated. And you know, so just to give some examples of some of those things, it's boundaries. How far away you want to have it from schools, how far you want to have it away from daycare centers. Who are you advertising this to? Are you advertising, you know, what mediums are you using? Is this getting exposed to children? You know, what demographics are you penetrating when you advertise? You know, what kind of signage are you using? You know, when it comes to, you know, growing the operations, they monitor this product from seed to sale. It's radio tagged. They know where it is at all times. You know, you have to create a manifest when you transport it, and it has to be logged with the state so they know where it is. You know, your inventory is weighed on a daily basis and is put in a system called metric. I mean, this is one of the most highly regulated businesses for you know, for a substance. Alcohol doesn't have any of these types of regulations, but it's what attracted me to this business. It was like, okay, they're doing this correctly. You know, I don't believe that it will be federally illegal forever, you know, because they're taking it seriously. You know, we have a camera at every point of sale. You have to be 21 that is to enter the store, which means you needed to have a door that's locked, and you can't let somebody in unless they show you an ID, and you check their ID again before sale. Every angle of the store is used in cameras. You know, every employee that you have has to have a background check and has to go through, the Marijuana Enforcement Division to be, you know, licensed. You have to go through significant training. You know, we have audits from field officers that come in and check out our businesses. So this is a very serious business. You know, and Colorado is the first state, you know, to have legalized it. All eyes are on us. So, you know, I want to make sure we're doing things the right way. And, you know, one of the things, you know, every one of our entities, this isn't for everyone, and we want to make sure that it doesn't get into the wrong hands, you know, and we want to make sure that it is in the right, you know, in the right place. And I think when the rules and the regulations were set down was, you don't want this to be in view or in path of school children. I have 4 children. You know, I'm in this business. I'm also in recovery. You know, my wife is in recovery. My ex-wife is in recovery. This is not, you know, for everybody. Every one of our entities starts with RFSC, which stands for, and we don't make this public, but it stands for Recovery Funding Solutions Company. You know, we intend to give back, you know, from our business. So, all that being said, you know, it seems that I think that there are some modifications that could be made to some of the rules that, you know, have been adopted in Basalt, and we'd like to talk about them, but not in this meeting, because we'll bring it up at a meeting down the road. But this one doesn't make any sense to me. As I understand it, we're basically taking something that's in public view of the high school and making that a place to open up a business. And, you know, I think that's going against everything that we've tried to do in this industry in terms of protecting, you know, this and keeping it out of the hands of children. So it doesn't make any sense to me. So with that, that's it.
Pete Tran, I'd just like to add to that really quickly, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the proposed location of this new shop, is it on that south-facing wall that, if I'm not mistaken, has a clear view from the high school?
I don't know.
This is related to the boundaries. Any specific property we don't try to
Okay.
include, because it's not a
Okay.
policy.
I understand.
Single location.
My understanding is that the people that are entertaining this are looking at a space that is on the south side of that thrift store complex. And honestly, I mean, how does that work? It's open space between the high school and that location. That is not, for me, I've got a 9-year-old, it's not acceptable. So if you guys approve this, I don't understand that. And furthermore, we were under, you know, huge onus to find the place we did under the regulations that were in place. Why do we need to change those? Why are those changing? Can anybody explain that to me?
Well, I don't believe an applicant brought this to us. I think this was a staff recommendation for us, that it was not site-specific or application-specific, but maybe staff wants to.
So it first came to our planning commission, and then the
How did it come to planning would be my question.
because it's a change in the zoning code.
But who brought that to your attention?
It was the property owner there, but it would relate to any property.
I understand that, but that gets back to the crux to my problem with this, or my challenge with this, is that it is in direct view of the high school. How is that appropriate? Okay, and I don't know, maybe I'm completely off base here, but the whole purpose of zoning was to keep it out of the eyes of kids. Am I wrong?
Did you have something?
As I understand this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, this has to do with the distance.
Correct.
That on the maps, there's a
Herschel.
circle drawn around those areas.
I understand that completely.
Now, if you're talking about visibility, because there's no trees or landscaping or other buildings in the way, that would be an additional addendum to this.
And I understand that, but why are you
Zone
changing?
code.
Why are you changing zone code to include this when
It
that's the
doesn't-
effect? That's the
This doesn't have
effect.
anything to do with visibility, though. If you're
Herschel,
proud,
Herschel,
That's the
You know
effect.
what,
Herschel,
Herschel, we're in
This
public
is
comment.
public comment.
So let's just hold it just for a second.
All I'm saying is that the effect of that is you have a direct line of sight from the high school to that business, okay? That is the effect. You can say that that's not what it's addressing, but that's the effect of that, okay? And to change code, why are we changing? Please explain why we're changing code.
We
Okay,
haven't changed the code yet. This is public comment.
right. That's all I was gonna say, is
And
it's
the
public
council will
comment right
discuss
now,
it.
and so what we do is we take all the public comment first. We don't get into
Back
conversations
and
like
forth
this
is-
normally.
I understand,
We just take
but-
all the public comment, and then the council will respond,
Okay.
okay?
But again, those parameters were put into place for a very good reason. The state looked at those very hard before they made those recommendations and made those law. So if you're changing those for any reason, again, I don't know what that reason would be, you know, and if it's to accommodate a certain business, then you're basically having a preferential treatment to a business. So again, I don't understand why you would change those parameters. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Pete. Other people? Yes, sir.
Hi everyone, my name's Sean, and my business is the one moving into the proposed location that we're talking about. I just wanted to put in just a quick 2 cents. We're located on the inside of that area.
Can I hate to do this, but we can't argue your specific situation.
No
We're here
problem.
just to talk about the legislation.
Excellent. Okay.
Stick to the legislation.
Sure. Anyways, I just wanted to thank you guys for your careful consideration in all of this. I'll just keep it to a comment, but thank you guys.
Thank you, sir. Others? Okay, does staff have anything in addition? Staff or council comments?
Well, I wasn't here
Yeah, Rick.
during the first reading of
Then
this, so I'm just gonna abstain, and you know my position on any of this, has always been communist, so I'm gonna stay there.
You're gonna abstain, why?
Well, I wasn't here on the first reading. I've consistently voted, you know, look, you explained it very well, Mr. Holmes, and it really hits home with me. You know, I just had a kid yesterday,
before a lacrosse game tell me that he was suspended for the next 3 because he got caught smoking dope in the high school parking lot. So, you know, that to me is where I'm at. That's the bottom line. The less visibility, the less opportunity, inappropriate advertising, the media stuff that's going on. I'm all for anything that can be done that makes sense, that can be enforced to manage this. I don't think people understand the rate of incidents that have increased, you know, and I know your daughter. And so I'm like you. I want it done right. I want it controlled. I want it to go to the right people. And I don't want it out there on the street where every Tom, Dick, and Harry that can borrow his older brother's ID can walk in and know about it. Every time I drive by this grow up on a balmy summer morning, spring morning, it's like, hello, you know, really? So anyways,
That sounded
you know
like a
where
vote,
I'm at.
I don't know.
No, abstained, because I wasn't here the first morning.
All right, anybody else?
Questions? This is for Tom. Does this proposed regulation change meet state highly regulated requirements? Or does it in some way violate state regulation of the marijuana industry?
I'm sorry.
I said,
Question again.
question is, does this proposed change to the Basalt zoning code fit within the regulatory framework that the state has adopted for retail marijuana sale, or does it not?
I'm not sure what the state rule is. I think this, our current rule, I believe, is what's also in the state rule. Is that right? Do you know, Susan?
Well, still allows it.
But I think the state does give state gives the local government the authority to make modifications to what they have in their rules, and I believe this is authorized, yes. It's a discretionary matter. You do not have to make the change if you choose not to.
My question is, if we
Not-
made the change, does it fit within the state regulatory?
The answer is yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'd be very happy to entertain any changes in the code that would address the visibility from parks or high schools or whatever of a certain location. That's not what this is about. This is about, you know, the physical, you know, distance. And again, as best we ever can, you know, we try to make whatever's in the code generic for whomever and whatever application, and not necessarily to exclude any certain business or building that we do or don't like. So the idea was that if you have this big, long building, and one corner of it happens to be in the circle that's drawn on the map, and 98% of the building is outside of it, and the shop's on the other end, should they then be excluded? That was a compromise we were talking about. I think Mark brought this up originally as just being practical and more like the liquor laws are. You know, the visibility is a completely different question, and at any time, as an amendment to the code, I would be very happy to entertain that, but I don't think it has to do with this resolution we're voting on tonight, or second reading of an ordinance we're voting on tonight. I'm very sympathetic to what you say. I just don't think this deals with it.
No, this is not an opportunity for this conversation between the audience and the council.
Right.
If you were recognized by the chair, that's fine, but right now the council's making their comments.
Anybody else?
I make a motion to approve ordinance 3, series of 2015, amending the alcohol and marijuana buffer measurement methodology.
Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
Okay, further discussion?
I do. At the beginning of this, we were talking about potentially tabling this and amending this?
No.
No?
No, what I had said was when Mr. Tram indicated there were other changes they were interested in getting into the ordinance, that we can't do anything about that tonight because it's not in the proposed ordinance. Those changes aren't in the proposed ordinance. They would have to come back separately. Now, you have the full range of options on what it is in front of you, which is to approve, deny, or table.
Well, that's what I was thinking about, you know, the tabling piece was just to have that conversation, but, I mean,
You have the right to decide to do that, but there's a motion on the table right now.
I guess my only thought is that it does give me some agita that even though we are not talking about a specific application, a specific business person brought this forward to us. I guess I was never really clear on that part. That bothers me a little. That why didn't we as a town or staff think of this ourselves? I don't know. I don't know why that is. So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Nay?
1, 2, 3.
Rick didn't
1,
vote.
2, 3, 1 abstention. So that motion
Didn't
fails.
I would make a motion to table.
I'm sorry, it failed?
It
So it
failed.
The motion failed.
Motion failed.
The motion to
Who's
approve
the third
fails.
against?
To approve failed, but I can make a,
You abstain?
Those 3-3.
Oh, you voted 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, it fails. Thank you.
Right.
so I was making a motion to table to discuss the other comments.
Well, it's gone down.
Yeah, it's
No,
on
we're
the table. You
tabling.
don't have
It's
to
not a
table
motion
it.
to die.
If the action has been taken, it's too late to table. The tabling would be in lieu of rejecting the proposed amendment. It's now been defeated, so
It's defeated.
too late to table.
Yeah.
Are you sure you didn't vote?
I voted.
You
I
abstained.
wasn't here on the first reading, and I voted no on the stuff.
Was Gary on the winning side?
What's that?
No,
Oh,
Gary,
it's on the-
We're past that.
We're past that.
We're
Well,
past
but Gary, we can, and I'm perfectly willing to have a broader discussion about this at some later date.
Okay.
That can happen even though this ordinance did not get approved. You can
Okay.
continue to discuss it at any time and can be brought back.
Well, that's what I originally wanted anyways.
You can do that without a formal.
So I mean, to me, I'd like to direct staff to.
and
to do
if,
that.
if they want to bring in, some language, to address these other concerns, at that time, it could be a whole new code amendment, ordinance that we
Okay,
have
so
to do,
if somebody's
you know,
got a
two
motion
readings
to
on.
direct staff, let's make it.
I don't think
and
we
let's
need to
move on.
we
Don't
just
need
direct staff.
Madam Mayor, you just tell them.
If that's a consensus of the council, the
Yeah.
staff can look into it.
It's fine. Okay.
Tired of talking.
The next item is 7B, presentation, public hearing, and second reading of Ordinance 6, an ordinance of the town granting ESA approval and site plan approval in connection with the Highway 82 Basalt Avenue underpass project. Susan and Mike.
Just real quickly, this is the second reading, and it's for the land use approvals for the Basalt Avenue underpass. We had a letter from the Safe Routes to School Coalition supporting the underpass that was put out in front of you today. And we had at least one person from the south side, a resident here to support the land use approvals for the underpass because of safety. Children had to leave because the hour of the meeting. So we
It's only
have
9 o'clock.
a number of people from staff and from the consultants that are here if you have any questions, but we're really ready for approval if there isn't any additional information.
Okay, is there any consultant
Well,
kind of
Larry,
comment before we go to the public hearing?
no, we weren't going to make a presentation unless you guys had questions.
Okay, so this is a public hearing. We'll open the public hearing at 9:04. Is there anybody in the public that has comment about this project? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Anybody on council have a comment or a question on this project?
Quick question, because we heard a rumor that there might not be lane closures. curious how it might happen, or is that just rumor?
Well, that's a big question.
That seems like a really long discussion.
All right, yeah, I withdraw.
Thank you.
Move to
Can we
approve.
talk about that at a future meeting, however?
I move to approve on second reading. Ordinance 06.
We got a
series
motion
of
and a second.
2015.
Further discussion?
Second.
Mark was the second. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you for your patience as
Well
well.
done, gentlemen.
You guys all came
Yeah, you did
for
great.
that.
You look smart, sir.
Oh, they're here for another one? Okay.
Okay.
I didn't like get up and start running, so.
Only Jen.
Okay.
Jen's okay.
We are on item 7C, and we're going to plow. Public hearing and second reading of ordinance 7 of 2015, an ordinance of the town approving an appropriation of funds to be used toward the purchase of a conservation easement and public trail easement on the Emma Farms property. Staff presentation.
I'm gonna recuse.
Please do.
Thank you.
Okay, this is the second reading on the purchase of the conservation easement. We have Dale Will from Pickett County Open Space and Trails here today. This is to place an additional conservation easement on the Emma Farms property. We did quite an extensive presentation at the last meeting, and we had a number of letters of support in the last packet. So if there aren't any questions, again, we're prepared to move forward with the second reading.
Okay.
And this involves the town's appropriation of $50,000 for a part of the contribution.
And we knew that. Okay. This is public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing at 9:06. Is there anybody in the public that has a comment or a question about this proposal? 50,000 going once? Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing. Questions, comments, or motion from?
I move approval on second reading of ordinance number 7, series of 2015, approving the funds to be used towards the purchase of the conservation easement and public trail on the Emma Farms property.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great.
Thank you.
Dale, thanks for hanging.
Thank you, Dale.
Could you send Mark back?
Great job, Dale.
If you see him out there?
Gary.
The other.
The other
Sorry,
one.
the other Mark. The other Mark.
You seen one, you seen them all. So easily forgotten.
If they sit to the left, their name must be.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, resolution number, well, let's wait for the other guy.
My other brother,
Your other brother, Daryl. Seriously.
I really want to get into this sentiment. Here he is.
All right.
That was quick.
I called you the wrong name.
Called me the wrong name?
It was a 3-3 tie.
Anyway, resolution 16, a resolution of the town approving an IGA 18748 basalt sediment removal scope of work with CDOT. You guys were talking about something interesting.
Oh, we're good.
Okay,
So
Larry and
you
Mike,
wanna-
or Larry or Mike.
Okay. So as we've been doing a FEMA remapping effort, trying to determine the south side floodway and a remapping of the floodplain, one of the things that we've talked about is the cobble buildup underneath the upper bypass bridge on State Highway 82.
Have we ever talked about this before? Like about 100
Lots of times.
And the nice part of this is that working in collaboration with CDOT and working in collaboration with John Sikora, and I'm going to forget his engineering firm because I've been talking to engineering firms, URS in Glenwood Springs. We were able to craft a draft which will take to a final that allows us on an ongoing basis to survey the elevation of the cobble, and then upon a determination that it's reached a certain level, we have an agreement that CDOT will remove it, and if they don't remove it in a timely manner, we can contract to remove it and send them the bill. You don't get too many of these. We get this.
Do we have to have a 404?
Yes.
Well, what's that take to get one?
It'll be a category exempt, categorical exemption.
Okay.
And so we have maintenance. And what is helpful, I'm Stuart Gardner with a seat on it. What's helpful is we've done the work before, and so there's already kind of a, I don't know, fingerprint on it, footprint on it. So
Is that when you leveled that area above the bridge?
yeah, that was 5 years ago.
Right.
Okay.
I watched you one night untangle about 100 cottonwood trees from underneath that thing. That was a pretty spectacular effort.
Okay.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve resolution 16, approving an IGA 18748 basalt sediment removal scope of work with CDOT.
You like this one, don't you?
I like those.
Further discussion, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, thank you.
Yeah, I like the fact a lot that it doesn't cost us anything. That's my favorite part of this.
Okay, resolution 17, resolution of the town ratifying the allocation of the Holy Cross discretionary funds. Mr. Scanlon.
So Holy Cross has a community enhancement program which is based on 1% of what they charge for electricity in the town of Basalt. And it can be used for 7 different purposes, which are outlined in that ordinance, ordinance number 3 from 2008. They are beautification projects, energy conservation projects, equipment and technology upgrades for schools, scholarship funds, acquisition of open space and or park land and development, sponsorship of special community events, and undergrounding of overhead electric and other utility lines. Before you can even use the money, you have to submit a request to Holy Cross, and then they approve whether or not your request is acceptable. And it's really their approval that allows you to then spend the money. And so we submitted our request. We've identified the Basalt Education Foundation, which on an annual basis takes grants from all of the Basalt schools on technology and actually vets them. And then we took the top, I think it was 5 grants, which totaled $5,000 that Basalt Education Foundation granted money for, and those were approved, as well as our Barefoot and Basalt program, which Holy Cross, in addition to doing this, has already participated by their board of directors putting their feet on a piece of fabric.
Is this still a committee that decides on the allocation?
It's
them.
It's them.
Oh,
Holy Cross.
okay.
Right.
No, we used to be on some committee that was Holy
No, you
Cross
submit
funds.
it to Holy Cross, and then they
Yeah,
approve it.
Herschel.
I was just wondering about 5,000 for education and 19,000 for the Guinness Book of World Records activity.
What the cost components were, or?
No, I just think that there's an interesting emphasis on what's important there.
Commenting on the disparity.
I'm commenting on the disparity
But we
between
didn't, we actually,
education and
we didn't make this decision, right?
It's Holy
It
Cross.
was
you
Holy
have to-
Cross, so.
no, but we gave them the things to
To
approve.
approve.
Oh.
Right.
That came from us. So it looks like we're saying that
Well-
this event is 3 times more important than the education.
Well, in 2014, the amount of Holy Cross funds that we gave to the Basalt schools was in excess of $57,000. So last year we gave a lot more to the schools for playgrounds and technology.
Okay. That makes me feel better.
Okay, where are we on this?
My only question, why $8,000 for the official to verify footsteps? Do we have to
No.
import them from Washington DC
No,
first
no,
class?
it's for the paint and all the other stuff.
Oh, there's-
Adjudicator.
An adjudicator is
Right.
$8,000.
Right.
It's a
Just-
separate contract.
Okay, guys, do we want to
Astounding.
table this and have a serious conversation, or, because,
Well,
I mean, if there's
okay.
really problems with it, let's table it.
All right, I do kind of share Herschel's feeling that that we should have more balance toward education in the future. Although we did have,
Right.
and I recognize that, I have no further comment.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. So we did that one, or, wait a minute.
Did D already.
Did D, we're on E. Resolution
E.
20, of town council related to an IGA between the town of Basalt amongst the town, Pitkin County, Snowmass Village, and City of Aspen outlining mutual aid responsibilities. Mike.
So we have been working for quite some time, and it actually was triggered by the flooding on the Front Range, and understanding that we really didn't have a lot of mutual or intergovernmental agreements between all of the entities in Pitkin County. And we added one change to this intergovernmental agreement for mutual aid and assistance, and it's under Section 1. And it recognizes that this agreement does not apply to the law enforcement agencies and the parties thereto. And we really need a separate one for them because they have unique circumstances that you have to account for that aren't necessarily accounted for in this one. But for everything else that we do, it actually starts putting a framework around it.
And we haven't had this in the past.
No.
Huh. Thought we had that.
Any?
Motion to approve?
Thank you.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 8F, resolution of the town granting approval for summer events in Basalt.
Okay, so for this one, we have Mark Breslin and Kathy Cliff and Kelly Alford. So if you guys want to move up a little bit. We don't have, I don't think this takes a lot of time unless we have a lot of questions, but the BDBA and staff have been working with Mark to try to get a comprehensive festival, fun things to do this summer, and they're really outlined in the attachment A of your resolution, and it is a fair amount of money that we're asking for. It's just under $55,000, but we have a number of ways in the resolution that we're going to be seeking reimbursement. For example, going to the BDBA and the chamber for approximately $20,000, working on the liquor sponsorships and seeking more sponsorships. But Mark, do you want to kind of maybe just give us a quick capsule of what we're talking about?
Hi, Mark Breslin. Lived in the Valley for about 35 years. I used to be one of the producers of Jazz Aspen Snowman, so I put on pretty big events. So I've been talking to the town and to the business associates about doing events, and I really wasn't necessarily going to start doing that, but then we started talking and I saw that there were some holes, and we maybe decided that maybe that concert series on Wednesday night could be revitalized downtown by the town park there. And we talked, Lemonade Days is out there, that's already set to do, and I figured we'd do a band to keep everyone around for Lemonade Days. And then I suggested that we do a big community kind of country dance with a country caller and Tex-Mex food and close the streets and get a big community feel to it. So we've been talking for a while. It seems like town feels pretty good about it, and I feel there'll be some vitality in the city. We don't want to not have events. I think it's a good thing. It keeps excitement and vitality.
Hey, staff, anybody?
I guess the other thing that we were really made aware of is that everybody wants these events and everybody wants vitality, but just a recognition that there's a cost of doing that. And I'd say that the simple thing is that staff can't do it. The chamber has gotten out of the events business, and so we're exploring other ways of trying to make it happen.
This is just a quick aside, but in the chamber's report, is that something we want them to do?
Well, Mike's position is that maybe they're not.
Enough people to do it.
Okay, well, okay. All right. So, go first.
One of the biggest problems we've had over the years is staffing these things. And, we had an opportunity the other day to call out some volunteers that are participating in a community-sponsored organic gardening. Said, hey, how about throwing another 4 to 8 hours against another project that might be going on in town? It got rebuffed. I really think that, you know, River Days was one of the great events, and
Yeah,
some
it
of
was
the other
good.
things we used to do. And, you know, what I've seen is Susan Phillip out there at 7 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock at night doing all the work, putting up the barricades, putting up the cones, putting up this, running around to the food tents and everything. You know, I think what this town needs to think about is, if they want that, how many community members want to give back a little bit of their time to make it happen? Because most everybody that I know lately, they want to have an event and all they want to do is come down, have a drink, have a barbecue sandwich, let their kids run around, look at custom cars, and they go home. They don't want to help emptying the trash containers, and, you know, funding it is $55,000. You know, to have a crew every time you have an event is not going to get us there. We need some more civic engagement around here, and I don't know how to get it, but I can tell you right now, I shudder when I see our staff guys and our public works guys that have worked 40, 50 hours a week already, and sometimes hanging around till 9 o'clock at meetings, out there on a Sunday morning setting up the farmer's market. You know, I just,
Well, that shouldn't be the case.
it shouldn't be, and I think that's got to be sort of, okay, if you build it, you need to come help build it and take it down and cart the stuff away from the event. Okay, that's all.
I think your point is well taken. And when the Downtown Business Association was talking about this, and when we heard that Mark was talking to the town, we all want to have events downtown also, and we're all running small businesses. And, you know, for us to participate in any of these events, we have to hire more people so that we can go do it.
Go do it.
So, and we're not alone. I mean, everybody, most of the businesses downtown are small, you know, independently run businesses.
Like
and
one
so for
person.
us- So this is a way for us to, you know, have that all whatever, the holy grail of vitality downtown. And we can participate, but we don't have to do the setup and the takedown. And we have support because we're gonna be open, everybody's open. All those events are happening.
The other thing is
Yeah.
that Mark,
Totally agree.
I mean, Mark is a professional. This is what he does. He does events, and we all have other businesses. I mean, whether it's a restaurant or an art center or a design business or whatever it is, you know, we all have other businesses. But he knows the events business. He knows the bands. He knows how to contract the security and, you know, the bathrooms and everything. And this is really one of these ways where this is kind of instant vitality. This is a way, you know, instead of building buildings or, you know, doing something like that, you're creating vitality fairly instantly. And I think that's the thing that we're looking to
People look
enforce
forward to
short
the
term.
annual events, you know, and when they peter out and go away and disappear, and you have to reinvent the wheel. That's, you know, so if you can make it sustainable, that's the right answer.
You know,
Okay,
nowadays it was the same people over and over and over doing it.
Let's get
So-
just a little bit of stuff here going. This is actually Gary's turn.
Well, no, I mean, how do other small communities do it? I mean, it's a question for Mike, and it's just, I would love to move forward with this, but then have a discussion during budget to discuss
Right.
how can we figure out how other communities do it so we can continue this, because I totally agree, this is a really nice and easy way to do vitality, but I know it's a tax on our staff, but if I know better of what the cost of that is and everything else, we can try to work on that in the future and for future budgets. But for now, I feel that we move forward with this, but with that direction to put it in the budget so we don't have to be at a supplemental, is to put it in the budget for next year, so we're working on all the ways to mitigate staff time and cleanup and organization and everything.
Herschel had a hand, and then Bernie.
I'm not clear, is this in lieu of or rather than the going back and forth between Triangle Park and Lions Park on whichever night of the week it was that we had bands? Wednesday?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking whoever knows.
Well, it's in lieu of, because.
Okay, so the bands aren't gonna happen this summer?
No, this, I mean,
They are
but
gonna
this
happen.
is the alternative. We're bringing it back, is in answer to your question.
Yeah, is this weekly?
Yes. Weekly
But
for
it's
6
always
weeks.
in Lions Park?
Yes.
Yeah, because Triangle
Because
Park-
Triangle Park might be under construction, we're not sure.
Okay.
Thanks for trying that.
Yeah, Bernie.
I'm all for vitality, but I'm also trustee of the public funds, concerned about open-ended commitments and open-ended funding by the town. I would feel a lot more comfortable if these were in amounts not to exceed this 16,000, 12,000, 22,000, and if I knew a maximum not to exceed of the town's contribution to
Now,
these.
what is the town's contribution? I thought it was 20, but I wasn't.
Now that's at least.
Oh.
That's a whole different animal. And philosophically, Mike and I discussed this, and I asked him, why are we doing this as a budget amendment, taking from our reserves when we agreed in the budget sessions that building the reserves was an extremely important financial goal of the council, and we have 800,000 budgeted as discretionary and economic development funds, and I think clearly this is both discretionary and economic development. It may seem like a small thing to you. Me as a financial person, I would not support amending the budget and taking it from the reserves. I do support making some set limit, upper limit of cash contribution so that these wonderful events can go forward.
What do you propose?
Well, I would propose that we have a not to exceed clause and a not to exceed town contribution of X dollars.
Okay,
And if you can't raise all the money, then maybe something has to be cut. Maybe you can't be quite this ambitious. If you can raise more money, maybe, but we are not on the hook for it. And my third concern is, just like what Rick said, Susan and the town staff are always run ragged. We just gave them a huge responsibility to come up with a master plan. I really don't want to see their time and effort and energy being diverted doing things that I think some organization, not the town staff, should be responsible for, including fundraising.
I agree with your concern. Can I just say that if we're going to ask to put limits on it, that, and we want to do it tonight yet, that we come up with what is the number that we want to say.
It says it in the resolution, it says, direct staff to work with BDVA and the chamber to help fund at least $20,000 of the cost of producing events.
At least then
But that-
drops that number.
But what's the
Right.
top?
But what's the top number? And I am
would
not,
say 25,000.
So no
I'm-
more
I'm
than,
willing
let's
to
say no
listen.
more than.
Yeah, I'm happy to say no more than $25,000.
That's just looking at the town's contribution,
Yeah.
right? If Mark wants to raise more money to bring the Rolling Stones
Yeah.
here, he can do that.
right.
Okay.
Okay, can,
Hey, let's start that rumor, the Stones.
Is this open? People have been talking kind of.
apparently, yeah.
Yeah, really? Okay. So, first of all, I want to say the chamber is not out of creating events. It is specifically out of this particular event because we couldn't get support. And I want to go on to why I think this is a really excellent idea, one that I've envisioned since I started. But we, in doing the music concerts, the staff worked 12 hours a week, putting out tents, taking them down. There were no committees when I started the chamber in August, and no matter how much we asked for help where we should, free concerts, lots of people having fun, we didn't get them. We need to build a culture of support, and I think part of that is this crazy Facebook page, although there's a lot of chat, not too much, I'm going to pitch in. But the other thing is we need to create anchor recurring events that happen every year and have a professional put them together who can create the environment that we can go forward on. I'm so thrilled about this idea and what Susan's doing, and back to the chamber, we want to support it. We want to do publicity. I'm sorry, am I going on too long?
I think the deal is that we are already in agreement that we need to have a bigger conversation about this whole deal and how we can make this work better when we start going through budget, because talking about it doesn't fund it. We got to get it in the budget and make some commitments about how that might work, and we need to include you
Okay, so
in the DBDA. So what we're looking for, I think, is a motion with a dollar amount.
Well,
Yeah.
actually, Bernie's first point hasn't been addressed.
is this the best way to fund it, or do we have, as Bernie was suggesting, other resources already allocated?
There's other resources that you could use, but it actually gets to Gary's point, which is, if this is the direction we go, it's nice to kind of carve out, okay, this is a change in what we're doing. And it kind of stands out when you amend your budget because it identifies it as an expense that, hey, wasn't there, but it is now. And you roll it into your discussions for 2016.
Okay, that's true.
Otherwise, it gets rolled into a big line item. And
Yeah, Rick.
I would move to go forward with this and set the not to exceed at $25,000.
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you for staying up late. You stayed up late.
And you're the man for the job.
Or maybe I did.
Thank you.
Oh, and I want to amend that Susan Philp is not permitted to come at 7 a.m. Saturday morning to help set up.
Good luck.
Okay,
Stopping her.
guys, we have an executive session still. Is there a motion to go in?
So moved.
Oh, and that executive session is for determining positions. Okay, hold on. Conference with our attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions in accordance with CRS 246424B and determining positions relative to matters that are or may become subject to negotiations in accordance with CRS 246424E and personnel matters in accordance with CRS 246424F. Okay. Was there a
Still moved.
motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So that means the TV.